Hey, we are live. I just want to make sure my live feed's off. I really hate that. We are live today, 22nd of January, 2018. So far on the panel today, we have Astral from, he's
Hello.
English, but Denmark. We have Artist from Germany, and we have Jimbo from Canada. Hello, everybody.
Evening.
Hello and oh Canada.
And Jimbo is going to talk about light and the fact that light is actually in our past, that light moves through us, we don't move through the light. Over to you, Jimbo.
More time. Yeah, light and what we're looking at, okay? There are a lot of misconceptions, okay? These ideas that stars are huge gas balls that are emanating light that's traveling billions and billions of miles is just not the way light works. Light has to be created, okay? How is it created? It's created through a process called atomic absorption. And in a fractions of a second, materials are charged, if you will, and there's what they call a negative half cycle. When these excited materials get charged, in that split second of that so-called negative half cycle, they discharge and emit light. Light is formed from the secondary emission of wave energy after it hits matter. Okay, waves, they have this thing. Most times people see waves depicted on a graph as a wave, as a line going up and down, when in reality they don't go up and down and in a straight line. They go round and round and forward. It's a bit different, but the point is, every time there's a half cycle, a positive half cycle, that's real energy. The negative half cycle, it's like no power. It's like an inversion. It's off. So half of the wave really has no power. It's off. It's the top half of the wave that has your energetic force. But when a wave hits matter, some of the matter absorbs that energy, becomes overcharged, and then in a split second during the negative half cycle, which happens very often, it emits a wave of light, or a wave that when it hits another material can become one of many things. It can become heat energy, it can become light that's reflected off, and if it's say a cell that collects wave energy to make electricity, well, instead of that secondary emission that's supposed to be light coming off matter, it's waves, and again, depending on what they hit or what interferes with them will determine what they become, either light, heat, or, if they're captured for electricity, what they call an electron. But again, I have some doubts about even the existence of electrons per se, in that, the wave energy, that's where the energy is. It's not in the electron per se, or this, it's supposed to have an ambiguous way of going through either a particle as matter or wave as energy, these things. Well, I'm sort of on the side of thinking that the so-called particle in the front, the electron, is like a bow wave on a boat, but that's neither here nor there. That's not provable. But again, the light that you see is generated where you see it, and that includes the sun and the moon and the stars. Now that big blue thing that we call daylight, that big blue aura that we can all see in, and then we see this yellow ball up in the sky that we call the sun. Well, is the sun really making the sky blue? Maybe not. Because again, Usually heat rises, and well, our system and our whole environment, heat moves from below us upward, okay, or energy moves mostly from below us upward. Background radiation, microwave from the oceans, all this stuff. So that's moving up. It's wave energy. That wave is hitting stuff on its way up. Guess what it's hitting? It's hitting air, nitrogen, oxygen, and water. You know, what we call water, loosely. Water, it's not water. It's so much more. But as these waves hit these materials in our atmosphere, they energize it. Part of it's absorbed, part of it's re-emitted, and we get our blue sky. You know, the process that generates light being misunderstood by most, you know, makes people think that, oh, the sun is a primary source of light. Oh, you know, all this stuff. It don't make sense. Not for the physics of light. It don't make sense that a star or a light could be 40 billion miles away and not respect the inverse square law. Now, the inverse square works with radio waves and with light, and with sound for that matter. The farther away from the source, well, every time you double the distance, you exponentially drop the power or the force. So there's no way a light ray can travel 40 billion miles. It's just nonsense. If light could travel forever, then all we'd really have to do is hang one big light bulb over every city, and, you know, we wouldn't have to have street lights everywhere. You know, the idea that the sun is 93 million miles away when we take a look and we see crepuscular rays makes it questionable at the least. I looked at some crepuscular rays that were live and over the Teton Mountains, and the sun looked like it was directly over the Tetons. But when I checked sun and moon, the actual sun, quote, was somewhere over North Australia, you know, or just north of Australia, towards Vanuatu. But, you know, visually it appeared to be directly above the Teton Mountains in the western United States. So our perception of the sun is way off, because it almost seems like we have as many suns as we have people looking at them. You know, it's very hard for two people to share the same sun. You can, but you have to be really intimate with people and, you know, be sitting like head to head and at the beach and watching the same ray of sun on the water together. Otherwise, if you're 3 feet apart, you'll both see an independent, you know, reflection on the water. And the sun, don't matter where it is, it's actually apparently thousands of miles farther away.
Could I just say one little bit, Jimbo? I watched this program myself, or video, and I hadn't realised it, because you just don't think of these things. This guy was explaining you can't see light; you only see it when it actually hits something.
Yep.
Because you don't see a laser, do you? You don't really see the beam until it crosses its path with something.
It's dust and other particles that well, change its frequency and, you know, re-emit some sideways and in all different directions. It scatters pieces of the beam. But no, light is basically invisible until, you know, it's a wave. It's invisible. It's an energy, like heat.
And just asking you that bit, what does that mean when, like, we've talked about this quite a lot, about the fact that we all see our own sun. So what does that quite mean then?
Well, I got to kind of look at things physically, you know, and it seems like things are reflections up there in a sense. You know, if the sun, I could see it over the Tetons with crepuscular rays, and it's actually near Vanuatu and lighting up India and everywhere else over that way. what I'm seeing is not the sun. You see, when the sun has an actual point where it is, what we call the sun, or that energy point, it's not where we look up in the sky and see it. That happens when something is reflected off a lens or a dome, basically. The perceived light source will be offset from where the actual light source is. So that's basically why the sun can be over Vanuatu in Australia and still appear to be right over the eastern
So
USA.
the only reason we see this is because we've got some kind of firmament or dome over the top to reflect this light.
I think it's reflecting a concentration of all that blue and parts of the energy, the other parts of the spectrum that don't get absorbed and re-radiated as the blue of our sky.
Because I understand this bit, like when the light comes in, it's almost like a fog coming across the videos I've watched. It's like a fog coming through. And yeah, and I didn't realise myself until sitting here, and the light was here at 3:30, but in the morning, but the sun didn't come for another 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah, I've had a kind of awakening one time. I was on ponchos, and there was I think it was a full moon that night, and we did some locations of where the moon was from where I was seeing it, and it was in my northwest or northeast, really relatively northeast almost, because I know when I look towards Montreal, and that's where it was, it's northeast of me here, and even northeast. Well, for Poncho and Vinny, it was due south, basically, of them, which didn't make no sense at all. Certainly not on a globe. My brain went for a loop, and
And also,
when you put it on a flat map, it works. I can know when I see my sunrise, it's somewhere over the middle of Africa. When I see that ball right on my horizon here in the east, I know that ball is somewhere in Chad, Libya, over Africa, halfway around the world, around the ball. I shouldn't really be seeing it. But no.
And also,
And
also
same,
if you go on a balloon or whatever, you can see that the sun is in the black. It doesn't light the black up.
well, the thing is, another thing that's a sort of oxymoronical is that light and dark can coexist. You can have a light right in the middle of total blackness. I got a little video where I demonstrate that. Extremely bright light, black around it, and then more light around that. So it's understandable that, when you send these high altitude balloons and they see the sun against a black background, it's normal, because black and light, or dark and light, can coexist without a problem.
Yeah.
See,
Even
But the light only goes up so many miles, doesn't it? Light goes up for what, 12, 13, whatever it is, 15 miles. And then the balloon goes above that and goes into the dark.
well,
Into the black bit, really. And the sun's up there.
well, it's also very clear when you have a light source behind you,
Yeah.
and you're watching a person, and the sun is behind him, or a light source is behind him. Everything is lighted up except the person. It becomes dark.
black in front almost, yeah.
Yeah.
Blacked out, yeah.
So that is also a very clear perspective that you can have light with dark.
And there's some natural assumptions people make that are just possibly very wrong. They think the sun is round. Well, if you take your cell phone and hold it close to the wall with just an all-white screen, real close to the wall, that you'll see a rectangle light on the wall. Pull it back, it'll form a ball. It'll form a round circle from a rectangle light source. The flashlight I bought, it's a thrower. The LED is a little square. It's about 2 millimeter by 2 millimeter by 1 millimeter thick. And it projects, well, in the end, a round light. although the light source itself is very square.
And
So,
it also could be caused by the lens of the flashlight.
yeah, and again, what is the sun could be extremely small.
Oh yeah.
You know, the light I have, the thing is 2 millimeters by 2 millimeters, but you know, 2 football fields away, it's about, you know, 10 feet in diameter. So, you know, perceptions, you know, if you have a tiny light and a real big reflector in front of it, well, it looks like it's a huge light.
I didn't realize it was a triangle.
What was the triangle?
Sorry, the sun. Was it what you said? The sun?
Oh, I'm just saying it could be anything.
Yeah.
Like I say, I mean, people assume that it's big and whatever, and it could be the size of a fingernail, the actual source.
He gave a possibility that it could be a triangle or a square, or another shape than a round
Another
circle.
shape than a round circle. And, you know, I have issues with the moon and the theory that it's a big rock weighing billions of, well, an extremely large amount of tons. Well, it just, nothing works, you know. That spinning corkscrew type of orbit, and we're all moving through space. It masses, like, if there was such a thing as gravity, I could take a big iron ball, which has a lot of mass, and a styrofoam chip, and I should be able to, like, have it orbit that iron ball. I mean, if people want to believe that the moon is a mass and orbiting us, that's fine, but I don't think the moon has any mass.
Me neither.
And if I don't know if you've seen this one, Karen, but there's a toy. It's called a Chinese magic mirror. But simply reflecting a light onto it and then onto a surface, you get a 3D look of, well, whatever's on the substrate of that mirror. Now, I look at the moon and I'm saying, well, 70+% of the surface of this plane is water. Water is reflective, day or night. I'm sort of thinking, and I don't know why the reflection of the moon wouldn't show it, but I sort of suspect that the reflection of the moon is a reflection of what's below. If we could read it right, we could actually map where other lands are and stuff, you know, that.
You think the moon is like a map of us in the sky?
I think it's a reflection of everything below. Yes, that's what I think it is.
Makes sense, because you also have those Earth strikes on the Earth itself that probably go further into the Earth. And also some craters, if you look at the moon, those craters, they tell you they could be because of comets hitting the moon. Actually, some angles of the craters on the moon go directly to the Earth.
Oh yeah, the 90 degrees, and how could they land at 90 degrees straight through the Earth? It's impossible. Logical fallacy, you know. But,
indeed.
Yeah, the whole thing has been an exercise in brainwashing by, well, a very skillful bunch of Freemason creeps that have had generations to ply their craft of manipulation and twisting things. These are the top wizards and warlocks of our world, these people. You know, we have the Illuminati too, but they're not quite the same kettle of fish, you know, the same idea. And they all work together anyway, but they've screwed us over pretty good. But it wasn't such a good screw over that some of us haven't figured out, well, there's a problem, and we've taken out the dunce caps, and we're going to man up a bit here and try to fix some situations. So little by little, got to get the job done. But that's not science again. That's the cult that gave us our fault.
That's more what you think rather than, because the moon always just really gets me. I want to know what you are. I think the moon's getting closer personally. And then when it rises, it's so big here. Sorry, when it appears, it's so. And sometimes it just appears out of nowhere. Like literally, it's not there, and then it's there.
Yeah.
No
James, can I say
explanations for
something?
it. Yeah.
You said when you see the sun coming up, it's like it's coming up from Africa, right?
Basically, yeah.
It's
Somewhere
like,
between
yeah.
Chad and Libya.
But what about, well, take for example Judith. She lives in Israel. She's seen it coming from the east, so she's seen it coming from, well, Japan or no, not Japan, but where would you say?
Let me look at Google real quick.
Yeah,
Just real quick.
India, probably India.
Yeah, or even Cambodia, farther to the east.
Where did they come from?
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, what is perceived as basically like an energetic zone that, imagine like a hula hoop, and then no matter where you are, if you look up, like the halos or whatever, no matter where you are, when you look up, that halo is charged. So no matter where you are, you're going to see the sun. It's going to reflect, but you're going to see it from one position or another.
If you just change the sun for us and the moon for us, what are the stars then?
Well, the stars, we can start with the fact that it's an impossibility for them to be millions and billions of miles apart and distance from each other, and all rotating over our head at the same speed around the Polaris. If one was at 40 million light years away and one was at 20, then the one at 40, to keep up with the one at 20, would have to go exponentially faster to keep up with it. They all move at the same speed. They're all a part of a same surface or medium. I figure it's a surface because they don't change. If you make a sheet of glass, well, it's going to have imperfections here and there, and they stay. If these weren't on some type of substrate or on some type of material, they'd vary more, I think. We couldn't have stars that are regular, like in constellations like we have.
Could I just say, one of our researchers reckons that the moon is the sun. What do you reckon to that one? Just asking.
I think it's a reflection. I try to look at things in terms of, tangible, what I see here, and like they say, as above, so below. If it's not practical, if it doesn't apply the, Occam's razor, then it's probably not a good theory. It's like the ball model. One reason it's so popular is exciting. It almost sounds dull to think we're on a stationary plane, not moving, and just some beautiful stars rotating over us every night, and a sun that is like a left-handed hook shot that, rotates around once a day and stuff. That's a little dull, but the idea of comets and galaxies crashing into each other and neutron stars that have so much mass that light can't escape them, and they know that black spot in the sky, they got a radio signal, it's a dark hole, It's more fun, more fantasy. And the unfortunate thing is that a lot of people have invested that as if it's a valuable knowledge base, and it's part of their conscience and their actual reality. So the instant it gets challenged, and especially if it's challenged with credible, pictures of, say, Ireland from England, across the water 100 miles, and the Isle of Man and a lighthouse 40 miles away, no matter how credible the proof, the danger of letting your wall down and all those beliefs that you've built up and your whole world, it crashed down. People would suffer catatonic shock. Some would need hospitalization. Some would flip, some wouldn't. It depends on the person. But the problem is that people have, well, invested in this belief. They have no other baggage up there except these fake paradigms of dark holes or science fiction terminology, nebulas, space travel, colonizing Mars, all these fantasies that will never come true. And that's their reality. So if we're on a plane, we're not moving, and there are no aliens on Alpha Centauri, and TT's mom isn't like 40 billion light years away. Wow, what a sad world we're in. But it's more exciting for storytellers and creative artists and stuff like these Freemason and artists and writers and stuff for hundreds of years. What's his name? Leonardo da Vinci has paintings of rockets and sketches of rockets.
Yeah.
That's way, 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 way back. John Carter, which was I think they invested something like $150 million to make that movie. It was written around 1908. I think it was written before Henry Ford invented the car. Or Mercedes-Benz, whatever.
John Carter, the man from Mars.
Yeah. So that's a fantastic story, brilliant science fiction.
Yeah, fiction.
Long before there was a NASA.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there were a lot of stories about rockets going to other planets just long before NASA ever went up there.
I think even in France, they had a cartoon book called Rin Tintin. Tintin?
Tintin.
Anyway,
Tintin.
Tintin. Yeah, Tintin.
Yeah, that was at
yeah, a little curly wave of hair, and a little dog, Milou.
Blonde.
I need to watch that.
He had a blonde.
Yeah,
he had indeed. There was a booklet, Mission to the Moon.
And the movie, they made one of the Rin Tintin movies, Mission to the Moon. Milou, the little dog, was
Yeah, there were basically two books. It was two separate stories, and it was basically one story, but in two sections. And there was one was Mission to the Moon, and was Man on the Moon.
Yeah, and that was before NASA.
Yeah, it was.
They've been doing this predictive programming for generations. It got easier with the television. That's why for the NASA rollout, they made the SURE, because, the Freemasons, they invented schools, they invented the curriculums, they invented the lies that they teach people. They made sure that their Freemason buddies who were going to do that moon hoax, that everyone would see it. So they shoved TVs in all our classes, even schools that didn't have enough TVs for every class. They damn made sure that every freaking class had a thing for this propaganda and this brainwashing.
I can even show you that comic book over here, Explorers to the Moon, and it was from 1953. See? There you go. Just to show the people. See, and that other one was Destination to the Moon. And that was from 1953. See? Tintin.
And it's still on the shelves today.
Oh, yeah. They are still reprinting that book. Yeah, it's very popular.
Yeah, I grew up on Tintin.
I read them all a lot. I actually own these two books. I own in German language. So
I don't know whether you would agree with this, but when Artis has been researching, it seems that they turned us into the ball for sure in the 60s.
Well, in the USA, I forget if it was Kalamazoo, Michigan. I think it was Michigan somewhere. On April 22nd, 1900, a gentleman was facing jail time because he dared to say the Earth was a ball. Mm. So this idea of, no one's ever thought the world was flat, like that little ruby-lipped Brian, I won't say his last name because I usually add stuff to it, but that little Brian with the ruby red lips there, He says, oh, he doesn't know anyone who's ever believed in all history that the world was flat. I mean, those are just outright lies, you know? The Siri religion is all a flat Earth religion. They believe the Earth is flat. There's, I don't know, 40 million Siri people or something. That's
The
not a, you know.
Micmac tribe in Canada believe they're on a flat plane.
I'm not sure if that would be all of the Micmac groups, you know. I grew up in Mariah, between Restigouche and Mariah. I went to school with literally a couple hundred Micmacs, and never once did anyone ever say anything about it. So I don't know. I'm sure some are and some have old values, but like everywhere, depends on the group of people, you know, what their education, what they were schooled by their elders and their community with. But I'm not sure it's universal with the Micmacs. But I don't know. I can't say that for sure. But I'm glad there are, and I wish there were more. But I hope it's universal with them. But I didn't know it as that, and I grew up with Micmacs, you know.
We sometimes have hangouts with Marlena. She's from the Micmac tribe. And she said it was only when she was about, I can't remember, she said she was 16 or 18 and someone told her she lived on a ball. And it was like, what? Because she grew up in a flat earth. So her part does.
Yeah, I'm sure, you know, because the native communities were literally devastated by Judeo-Christianity, by us imposing our system on it. Like in the north, the Inuit suffered at the hands of the RCMP to force them into, you know, our traditions of buying at supermarkets and all this dependency and welfare state. What they did, they went around murdering all of their dog sleds and stuff, their dog teams, just shoot them in their yard so they couldn't go hunting for seal and other food. And they'd have to go to the store and get eggs and chicken, $30 chicken, $12 eggs, $16 gallon of milk. But yeah, that's progress though.
Well,
Not.
Yeah, we cut off science a bit there. That's what I hate doing. But yeah. No, we've got some changes to do, and getting the science right is one thing. One thing that I think everyone is doing wrong, and I mean everyone, the formula for curvature. I'm sorry. As long as people are still, including flat earthers who are supposed to, you know, get things right, as long as they're using the old paradigms and their lunacy, their insanity, we're screwed. The example I'm going to give is that in circular math, there are 3 numbering systems, not 4. You can measure in degrees of radians, in grads, or in quads. There are 3 different numbering systems. There's no numbering system that uses a formula for a circle of such and such squared. Those are exponential, and that's not the way you measure any ball anywhere. If you went into a CNC shop and told them you were going to calculate a curve with a formula that involved a square like that and a logarithmic feature that dies off the farther you go to 90 degrees, you wouldn't last a minute. You do all your calculations either with grads, with rads, or, you know, quads. They're the only 3 that I know. And they all work nice. So why did these bozos come up with the 8 inches per mile squared? Because it's insane. Now, everyone knows what an acronym is. SANE, the word SANE, it comes from an acronym. That acronym is Standard Alpha Numeric Entry. It's simple. It's standard. It's like A equals B over C, or, you know, just real standard, simple stuff. When it's not standard, non-standard alpha numeric entry, it is insane. So that formula is insane. So people who use it are insane.
Can you
Got to get it right.
can you expand on that, please? I'm all
Okay.
ears.
The formula of 8 inches per mile squared will not work on 360 degrees of the ball.
Only a
And
quarter.
not even there. As you get closer to the 90 degrees, that exponential factor screws you over, basically. So it's the
How do you
wrong
work that
way
out?
to calculate a curve, huh? It's an
How do you work
exponential.
that
It's
out
like
then?
bell curves. You can't use that formula and get a perfect arc of 90 degrees. You can't. That's why you can't do the 360. Look, if you check your numbering systems for circles and circular math, there are, to the best of my knowledge, only those 3 used in science. Degrees and radians, quads, which divide a full 360 degrees into 400 degrees so that each quadrant is 100 degrees. Now, when you have a quadrant of 90 degrees that you measure at 100, it's easy to make a percent for a grade or a slope. And that's why we have the quads. You know, a percent of 100 is that simple, you know. That's why we measure grades with the quads. It's so much more coherent. So we definitely use quads when we grade railroad tracks, hills, other stuff. You couldn't use a squared formula for nothing like that anyway. But no, it's the absolute wrong formula. It barely works. It's clever. It's cute, but it's stupid because it's not what anyone should use because it's not standard alphanumeric entry. It's like NASA with all its non-Newtonian or whatever physics and stuff, non-Newtonian physics. You know, when we have a thing called centrifugal and centripetal force, when an object is spinning around on a tether, okay, like the ball and chain when they do the Olympics and the guy with the ball and chain spins, the instant he lets go, he's spinning in a circle, a tight circle, and he lets go, that weight goes straight. It wants to go off on a tangent. Without that tether, without that chain between him and the ball, he couldn't do it. Well, it's the same thing with the moon. We want to believe somehow that an invisible tether, the force of gravity, is holding the moon in its orbit to the Earth. Well, when things are rotating, like, you know, I mean, if you're going around a bank in a car in a corner, a hard corner, and your door opens for the passenger and you're, you know, turning left, what's going to happen to them? They're going to fly out of the car. They want to go off on a tangent. Now, when these idiots are up in the ISS doing a spacewalk, well, if they're on the back side of the shuttle, then, well, the shuttle below them should be moving faster than they are. And the funny thing is that the gravity is able to lock and hold the space shuttle or the ISS, but yet not have any force or pull on the astronauts in it. There's gravity for the ship, but not for the people inside it or objects inside it.
Yes, Jimbo. Just as
that
you've
doesn't
got to
make
that
sense.
bit, you know the bit about what they're showing us, what gravity is like on the ISS. I mean, sorry, the lack of gravity on the ISS. If we had gravity here, like they say, we'd be walking around like the astronauts do. We'd be walking around there because it's got to keep the water onto the Earth, and we'd be, or I'd feel that probably my head would be wanting to go to the floor because gravity would be pulling my head down. Gravity would be pulling all the branches down.
Well, here you got
We'd be
Occam's razor again and a simple example of how it works. And we'll start with a big dummy. We'll call him like Mike Tyson. Sorry, Mike Tyson. I mean the other Tyson. But you remember that microphone fiasco? Well, there's rules. And these guys pretend those rules don't exist for their freak out shows. Now, one rule you learn in physics: a body at rest stays at rest until a force acts upon it. Now, microphones. Well, that microphone was a happy microphone sitting on a table or a desk somewhere. And it wasn't going to move. And no gravity on Earth was going to move it. But then a monkey grabbed it and passed it off to an idiot. And that idiot, who now gave that microphone potential energy, say the mic weighed 1 pound, and it's now 4 feet off the ground. That's 4 foot-pounds of energy that's stored in his hand in the shape of that microphone being suspended over midair. So someone gave that microphone energy, potential, and then released it. It has nothing to do with gravity. And the reason it falls is because the air doesn't have a volumic mass greater than the air. And that's another thing I wanted to touch on, the term density. It's okay. I grew up with it, and I'm corrected because I can't work with stuff that doesn't work, and density doesn't work. People have been conditioned for it, and it's accepted, but it's actually the ratio of the mass to the volume of a material. Now, density is real. There is a place and a time to use density. Now, if you have something that, well, I'll give you an example, cork. You can take 1 centimeter of cork as it is, a cubic centimeter, and weigh it, okay? Then you can take the same cork, squish it down to half the size, and add another half, and still make it 1 cubic centimeter, but now its density is double. So styrofoam, you can increase its density by squishing it. Cork, you can increase its density by squishing it. That's where you use density. Otherwise, it's the mass per volume, the volumic mass of a material. How much does a given volume of this weigh? It's not density, it's volumic mass. But these are the devil's in the details, you know. And if, you know, we don't apply Occam's razor, we're gonna just be in doo-doo with these, you know, clowns and scientism freaks and everything from here to doomsday. But the science, we got to get it right. And like I say, light, it's secondary emission. The sun, the moon, the stars, they're all secondary emission. The light you see, well, like the blue of the sky, it comes from exactly where you see it. The lights in the stars, where they're generated, that's where they are. And it's not millions and millions of miles away. It's a few thousands at best, if that. In fact, if you check the old, I guess it was one of the Encyclopedia Britannicas from way back when, there's an article that says that around, I don't know, the 80th latitude south, that there's a dome at about 19,000 feet. And there are other places, you know, before this.
How high up's that then?
Globe Mafia.
How high up?
18,000 feet?
Yeah.
About 4 miles, I guess.
Really?
5,000, yeah.
So the
Yeah,
plane
it's
goes
only
above
about-
it?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how high they fly when they're coming into the south.
About 37,000 feet, they tell you. That's 7 miles up.
Well, they can say what they want. Not everything people say is true.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, do you mind if I just...
Can I interrupt you, James?
Oh,
Sorry, earlier about the formula for the curve is wrong. And that there's only 3 ways of doing it. It's either radiant, gradient, or quadrant.
Quads. I know. I've been saying that for 2 years, 3 years now.
Yeah, okay. Well, how then, or rather, what is the correct formula that we should use for finding curvature? Can you?
Any of the three, they all work. They're all perfect for doing the full 360 or 400 degrees. It's relative. It don't really matter which one you use, as long as you use one that works with full circles.
Yeah, well, can you give us like a solid?
You muted out. What happened?
Oh, he's just frozen for a second. He'll be back in a second.
Okay.
Yeah, that happens sometimes. Sometimes
There
you
you
get
go,
a bad
back now.
connection.
Am I on? No, okay.
Yeah, you just froze for a moment.
Yeah, ask that question again, Astral.
Yeah. What the correct formula? What's the correct formula? What should be the formula for the curve then? Like you spoke of the three.
Well, if it was actually a globe, you'd go from the center, and you know, when you open a ray or whatever, you start a line. Then,
can you give me some numbers?
well, do it in quads. Quads, each quarter of the Earth would be 100 degrees. The full ball would be 400 degrees. Have your fun. It's simple to work. Everything would work out into percentages.
Then? You know, we're all working off this. How far you go. If I'm 6 foot and I've got a twin, he's 6 foot. By the time he's walked, 3 miles? I shouldn't be able to see him. Correct?
Even before that, I mean, you know, a personal fade out of your view, still, probably in a mile.
It doesn't matter really in my eyes, because if that person disappears, there's a curve, isn't there? Supposedly. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, if we were all on top of a ball,
but then the mathematics must be correct in that sense.
Yeah, if you were at one point and I was at another point, we both walked towards each other, we'd meet in a valley, because we were both on the highest part of the ball.
That's cool.
No matter where you are on a ball, you have to be on top of it. And like these guys want to say, oh, there is no up on a ball. Oh, yes, there is. On a pool table, your balls have a top and a bottom. When you do a little English on the cue ball, it has a top and a bottom. It's retarded to think there's no top or bottom on a ball. And when I say, and I tell these people all the time, they believe that someone standing on the North Pole would be standing straight up, and then someone at the South Pole would be upside down from them. It don't make no sense. It's like Australia. I mean, a train holding on to the bottom of the globe spinning at 700 miles an hour.
Yeah, ridiculous.
It is. And the gravity.
We also have another researcher who worked for the electricity company, and he was doing some experiments for them, although he was into free energy. And he had to use those things that make scalar waves. And when he actually used the machines, the scalar waves came back immediately. So he knew we were in an enclosed system. And he can't say whether it's hard or whatever, but this firmament dome, whatever you want to call it, is a frequency. But he put it about 60 miles up, but the sun and the moon are inside that.
Well, you know, it's you know, like I say, I try to work with what I know is a possibility. I can never say absolutely anything is, you know, what I say it might be. It's only might. But, you know, you think of the materials that are available at high altitude, it's very cold. There's always water in the air. Water and cold together, they make ice. Water's above, water's below. I don't think it would be an impossible concept to think that maybe our dome is an ice dome.
Right.
Because we're in a water system. What's below is 70% water. And they say as above, so below. Well, why wouldn't what's above be, you know, 70% or more water?
It makes sense indeed, because on the top of the peak of a mountain is also snow. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That fits the narrative. Yeah.
Yeah. And we haven't even gotten to water yet. Water is such an amazing thing, but it's actually a fuel, and it's in chemistry we call it a metal hydride. very important reagents, and it does so many different things and has so many different characters and properties. It's unbelievable. But water isn't really H2O. At the very minimum, it's, like a lot of things, diatomaceous and dimolecular. Water, H2O, cannot exist. It has to exist with a partner, 2H2O, if you will. But that's not the end of it. There's free hydronium. There's always 7% free hydronium in neutral water. Well, free hydronium, hydrogen, is an explosive gas. Usually it takes 10% fuel, combustibles, to make a fuel. Water, all that water is only 3% away from being explosive, combustible, flammable. It's very close to a fuel already. When it evaporates and goes into the air, the same property of, free hydronium is there. So it goes up in the air. Well, it's ionized. This stuff, like I say, it's up there. It gets hit by wave energy. It radiates, I believe, the light we see. And, well, it also is the catalyst for transfer of energy. It's the catalyst for discharge of over electricity back down to the ground in the system. Water is a big key. I think myself, the sun, our light, our radiant energy, all that stuff comes from, one way or another, our hydrologic cycle, the evaporation of water, and the properties and other things that we still don't know that it does and can do. But that's my own suspicion. Again, Occam's razor, you have to, and like I say, I survive by being practical. If I told people convoluted stories of how to fix something and jerry rig, I wouldn't have much to work on or anything. But
And it's also all the things that we can see as humans. We are limited what we can see. Animals can see more things. And also, you have sometimes that a certain wave can be also duplicate waves that have a completely different opposite frequency that cancels out other waves.
Cancels out or changes,
Yeah, and therefore there are still those waves, but we can't hear them, but they are still there.
Well, nature has a funny way of cleaning things up. If you have a whole bunch of different sinus-style waves that are all merging together, you know what comes out of it? A square wave.
Yeah.
A square wave is simply a whole bunch of sine waves that are all merged together, and it makes a near-perfect square wave.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Order out of disorder. Waves and wave energy are all interchangeable. We separate audio frequency, sound waves from the light, the visual spectrum, from the radio spectrum, from this spectrum. Well, they're all one. I'm sorry. A wave is a wave is a wave. The fact is, sound can become light. So are they related? Absolutely. We see sonoluminescence, okay? Heterodyning, any two signals can merge together and form a third signal. The process is called heterodyning. Waves do it all the time. If two waves meet in the right phase, they'll neutralize like sound. If you take speakers on a stereo, put them face to face at the right distance, crank up the sound, you won't hear anything.
Well, it has a lot of similarities, sound waves and light waves, because with the sound wave, you can shatter glass. But actually also with a light wave, you can also shatter glass if you make it a certain wave. If you sing a very high-pitched note, the glass shatters. If you actually point a laser beam at a glass, a certain kind of laser beam, it also shatters the glass. So they have a lot of similarity in them.
A wave is a wave is a wave.
Yeah, indeed.
I have a physics question. It's a bit of a trick question.
Uh-oh.
You want to give it a shot? Even maybe the chat can test this one out. Okay.
Go on then. Yeah, well,
Pretty
go on,
simple.
chat, listen.
And it takes a thinking cap. You have a big egg timer on a scale. Weighs 2,000 pounds. You flip it over. While the sand is falling, does the egg timer weigh more? Does it weigh less? Or does the weight stay the same?
I'd say it's the same. Same weight, it's the same amount in the glass.
Yeah.
Why would it change?
Well,
It's dropping down.
like I said, it is a trick question.
Say it again, please. Could you say it again, Jimbo?
Okay. You have an egg timer with 2,000 pounds of sand in it at the bottom. You flip it over. It's on a scale. While the sand is falling, does the scale say it weighs more, it weighs less, or the weight stays exactly the same?
I think the same.
I'm going to say less.
I think the same.
I think less.
Any
'Cause it's
guesses
moving.
from the chat on
Yeah,
that one?
they say, well,
Same.
Newt says
Wayne,
Lewis?
in the chat, Wayne says the same. Trouble Bout say less. One Conscious says the same. And Hulk Flat says the same. And Ian Koslisa also says the same.
Now, this might be hard to take. It
Trouble
weighs more
says, really?
while the sand is falling. And here's why.
Because of the way it's banging down on it. I've got you.
You gave it potential
I know.
energy. You stored 2,000 pounds of weight above. All the time it's falling, you're releasing that energy. The scale is going to indicate more weight until the last grain of sand falls. It weighs more.
Wow.
And it's a closed system.
Incredible. Thank you.
Well, it's simple things like that that we've been fooled on over and over and over by these magicians. Look, when
But
they take
sorry to
away
say, in essence, though, it is the same weight. It's only because it's moving. It's got.
No. It is
It's only
more
because it's got
weight while the
momentum.
sand is falling. Potential energy, that weight, that's extra mass. That's stored
Exactly, because
energy.
it's
It has to
potential.
be released.
Yeah, because it's been released, that it's
It's-
giving something. If you turn it on its side, it's the same. If you turn it on the other side, it's the same.
Yeah,
because it's
and on the
still
side
there.
with no sand falling, same weight.
But
Yes,
only because it's falling, it's giving something.
only
I
because.
understand
Yeah.
that.
If you stop it
Nice
from
one,
falling,
Dave.
it'll weigh the same. It'll go back to 2,000. But as the sand is falling, and it's counterintuitive. You'd think because there's all that sand falling and in midair, it would weigh less. And that's a natural way to think. Or at least the same. There's no logical
same.
reason for you to assume that it would weigh more.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
we go with.
thank you for that question and also the explanation. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't often get those for the chat room. You got any more, Jimbo?
Well, that's one of the tough ones, you know. It takes most people don't get it right, and there are a few others like that, but that was a good one at a good time.
Yeah.
Which is heavier, a pound of metal or a pound of feathers?
They're the same.
Yeah, I thought because
Yeah, that's a common one, but still people get it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I thought because it was moving, so that not all the matter was together, it would be lighter.
You'd think that, but in the actual physical world, that's not the way it works. It's in a closed system again, too, you know. So I don't know. It just works out that way. While you've stored energy, when it's released, it comes back as weight. But that's another thing about weight. It's one thing to say, Well, here's another example. You know, I gave the example of the microphone at 1 pound, 4 feet in the air. That's 4 foot-pounds, okay, of potential energy, of stored energy that can be released. Say you have a 50-pound bag of potatoes and you raise it 10 feet in the air. Well, that bag of potatoes has like 500 pounds of potential. It takes a lot of energy to keep it up there. If it's on a deck or something, it'll stay there no problem. But the amount of energy to keep it 1 foot off the ground, to keep it 10 foot off the ground, to keep it 1,000 foot off the ground, to keep it 14 million feet off the ground, it's not the same. See, something might weigh X on the ground, but you lift it up in the air, technically it weighs more. You got to fight harder to keep it up there. It's physics. It just proves what goes up must come down.
So how does that sun and moon
Unless it's the ISS.
out there?
Yeah, then you make sure you filter that swimming pool water so people don't see all these little things and call them aliens and spaceships and all that fun stuff.
Well, but basically they're all unidentified flying objects, and that's a great name for it, because UFOs, and they always call them UFOs. Oh, well, basically they are saying unidentified flying objects, so they could be military. You know.
Yeah,
Well, the thing is too,
you have a scuba diver coming.
yeah, sometimes like people say, oh, look, it's moving all different directions, and wow, that proves it's like space age technology from aliens and stuff. Balloons can go up, down, right, left, stay still for a while, do whatever they want, and just get caught up in any stream or air.
What
and they'll
do you
move
think,
with it.
what do you think about drones? They can do the same.
They can do the same.
Yeah.
Drones are really well advanced now.
Yeah.
I know what we see as drones now. 20 years ago, the military had, 30,000 foot altitude drones that they could fly around, all kinds of stuff.
Oh, for sure.
We get everything more or less after the fact,
Yeah, about 10, 20 years later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now it's good. People have new technologies, and we're not as dependent on industry anymore for new inventions, creations, and that brain power it takes to be creative and to unlock new inventions and ideas and stuff. Corporations get stale, and they're self-serving too. So some things that a normal person, inventor, citizen type of thing would maybe invent and share with other people, a corporation might not, because it might not be profitable for them, or it might not be in their interest. Matter of fact, there's a good example of a corporation that shot itself in the foot, and that's Kodak. Kodak actually invented digital photography for people, but all the technicians that worked on it and developed it and stuff saw it wasn't coming to the market because Kodak mothballed it, kept paying them and to keep producing and developing, but they weren't releasing products to the market. So some of these technicians went to other companies, and that technology was developed by Kodak and sold and mass marketed by every other company in the world. And Kodak was the last one to jump on the digital bandwagon, and did a bad job of it too. Yet they invented or created the digital photography, CCDs and stuff. So, they did a good thing, and they tried to mothball it, and it cost them billions, really.
Wow.
Yeah. Bad choice.
Yeah.
But it happens.
Oh, for sure.
I don't know what's left. Yeah, free energy. I heard you mention that earlier and stuff. Just noting, Karen, you did play one video of the guy sounded like he had a Russian accent or something there, and he had these two coils with a little three-prong antenna on top of it and stuff. And he slid in these magnets into his coil and lit up little LEDs with it and stuff.
Yeah, I've
Yes,
seen
that's
that.
what I put out recently, like last week. Or something.
Yeah, a couple of weeks or so, or maybe even last week. Well, that guy's a total fraud. At one point, I know he has a battery in his hand, and he's completing the circuit. If you look at the way he inserts his so-called magnets into his coils, they have to make contact for his lights to go on. You know, it is not free energy. That whole video is a sham. You know, I like the idea of free energy. There's lots around us, but the problem with energy is that either you use it right away or you store it and you use it later. You know, there is lots of free energy out there, but you need to accumulate it. You know, almost any antenna can be hooked up to a battery, and it will charge over time.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
all kinds of energy in the air.
yeah. Thank you for that, James. That you made us aware of that. Just like
Thanks for putting that out and out then.
yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah, that's a
That's
junker. That's a
that's why
total
you
scam.
always have to do your research and check the facts as much as possible and find out and dig deeper. Just like I found out that so supposedly giant stone in Russia, it was basically a doctored
Yeah.
photo, and it was just a big stone at an Olea Tombo in Peru. They doctored and made it look big. And a lot of media actually regurgitated that same photo. CNN showed it, Alex Jones showed it, and a lot of channels showed. And I thought, hey, that stone looks familiar. And then I flipped to my pictures of Peru because I'm doing a lot of research there, and I found that same stone. And it actually was, not that big.
Well,
It was as big as probably a Volkswagen, and they made it appear as big as an old school bus. So yeah, they're fake now, even bigger than that. So you have always, when you see one side of a photo and you don't see other sides, other perspectives, well, you have to wonder if everybody uses the same photograph, it's probably a fake.
well, yeah, and they used to say a photo's worth 1,000 words, but certainly not anymore. And even then, that was an exaggeration, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Time magazine is good for stuff. After the Kennedy assassination, they had a picture of Lee Harvey Oswald with a carbine in his hand there, a long rifle. And, well, it was a copy paste and maquette and markup job. The sun was off to his right, I believe, yet the shadow under his nose was from 12 noon. They simply copied a picture of his head onto the shoulders of a guy who was holding a gun in front of a house somewhere. But they made that false image to, you know, embed in the minds of the American public that, oh, there's Lee Harvey Oswald. Oh, he's got the gun that killed Kennedy.
I never heard
He's
that
guilty.
one before.
Yeah. Well, anyway, there's a picture of, and that's just one of the things Time magazine falsified, and that's way back. They had another one where they were doing a story about poverty in Europe somewhere. I don't know if it was, not Turkey, but, you know, where, you know, old ladies look like they're dressed ethnic and stuff. Well, what they had done is they hired some actress lady to dress up like some ethnic woman and stuff and go rummage around a dump. And that was in, you know, a dump near New York.
Mhm.
And they took pictures of her. And in Time magazine, it was this funny named lady from some funny country over there, and that was their living condition and stuff, you know?
Well, what you
Really?
also see that you can recognize that they are actors. That they then do an interview with some guy, and he has perfect white teeth. and it's a regular person,
Yeah.
or it's even a bomb. And when he talks to look, perfectly straight white teeth. Now, most of the actors have perfectly straight white teeth for the acting job to appear nice for the camera. And that's also often a giveaway. Eh? They interview a bomb and he has a perfectly white teeth.
I can hardly believe that they'll pay these actors, these actors, to go from, I don't know, the USA and the South over to France for one, or over to England, or,
Mm-hmm.
They do a world tour of crisis actors. You'll see the same one in 3 different crises in 2 months. What are the odds? It's like, in the last few days, I think it was Hawaii, one of their missile alert centers reported that there was incoming and went to a state of alert and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You heard about that, eh?
Yeah.
Well, you didn't hear that some big schnoz reporter from NBC was there 2 hours before. And then it just so happens that that's when this big emergency happened.
Oh, yeah.
Give me a break.
Yeah, they're always on the location itself very fast, sometimes ahead of time.
Yeah. A journalist from America, from NBC, just happened to be there for 2 hours
Do you think this is
before.
what they're going to be doing to us regularly now, so that everybody becomes frightened of incoming missiles?
Fake news, yes.
More of the same game.
Richard's talked about that as well.
The other thing I noticed was that this couple me and Artis were watching it. They just got married. She was pregnant, so imagine putting her through that. So she was pregnant with the baby, and then basically they'd been there less than about 24 hours when the message came on their phone. So they obviously know where everybody's phones are.
Part of this Operation Monarch and stuff, which never shut down, was to devastate what is the human spirit, to keep it abated. I mean, really, when you think of it, people's sensitivity is as fragile as a butterfly. People can be hurt really easy because, especially if you're a caring person, you're usually not too hard to shatter. And the government, CIA, all these people know it. This constant bombardment of fear and of aggression and of, badgering and no peace, no cooperation, no dog eat dog shit. It's all part of MK Ultra. The whole works. It was part of something else before that, but it's just the refinement. They got better at it. In France, there was a village that a bunch of people went crazy. 7 people died. There was mass hallucination and everything, and they had eaten bread from this one bakery. Well, it so happened that a CIA agent happened to be in France, and in that town when that little event happened, he contaminated the bread with hallucinogenics to do an experiment for the CIA in a foreign country. But they didn't know for years and years and years, what exactly had made all these people delirious.
Weren't they showing them around the control room where they would have alerted people with press only the day before? So the press were already there anyway.
2 hours earlier. The press is that so-called reporter, Illuminati, Mason, Zionist spy that was there, an organizer, was there for coordinating that event. He says, this is what we're doing today. Today we're calling in a fake missile coming in, and we're going to report it, and we'll have some nice stuff for NBC. We'll make $100 million off of this or more, and that's what we're going to do. So, I mean, if you want to see an agent who coordinated a false flag, you look at that reporter from NBC, and that's one.
Yeah, probably in the next news segment they will say this missile was sponsored by Coca-Cola or Pizza Hut.
Mad Mike.
Yeah, whatever. And it probably was sponsored. And it was probably sponsored by some company. Who knows? Huh?
So you think the whole thing was a total fake and no bombs ever took off? Because I was thinking, if they had, Why aren't we all worried about the fallout then? If they're supposed to be nuclear bombs, not that I believe in nuclear bombs, but any kind of, if they're nuclear bombs, then there should be fallout.
If you look at the overall smorgasbord of fear that they want us to eat, we got alien invasions, we got nukes and war, we've got, lock your doors at night because there are bad people everywhere going to break in, rape, rob, and murder you. You got, just it never ends. The platter of things that, they give us that, to fear or to worry about or to scratch our heads and panic with other people over. Nibiru, like I tell people, Nibiru, what a joke, more lights in the sky. If there was really another dark sun or something and 8 other planets in our solar system, and we're not feeling it now 3 years later, because I was checking out in the afternoons through a pinhole camera all these nice lights beside the sun in the afternoon and stuff, because everyone's saying Nibiru, Nibiru, Nibiru. Well, I go look and it's some lights, but I don't see earthquakes or the sky falling or tornadoes and hurricanes. And
2015 it's coming. 2016 it's coming. They can't be coming.
Well, what I always say to people, if the animals and the birds start flying and running away, then run like shit, because then if something is going to happen.
There's a sign.
Well, yeah. If like they use pets as a detector for earthquakes, there are people who are paid to watch the classified ads and stuff, and when they notice an increase, say 20 pets run away in 2 days, people are saying, "Where's my pet? Where's my pet?" in the newspaper. They're usually pretty sure there's going to be an earthquake.
Yeah.
They don't know how big, but they're usually pretty sure there's going to be an earthquake. In a lot of countries with elephants and other stuff, they move away from the coastal plains.
Yeah.
To avoid flooding. Even elephants are smart enough to get away. Well, they're in touch with the ground. They feel these vibrations. They feel other stuff,
Yeah, they are in harmony with nature, so they know.
Yeah. Cows will stand before an earthquake with their legs farther apart to help support them better during a quake.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll prepare for it before we even know there's going to be a quake. They know.
They know, for sure.
I was a bit, I know we were talking about light, but I'm sure you'll go back to the light subject. We've just diverged a little bit, but we had someone who lives in Mexico, and he said that it was like the last one, it was like 2 earthquakes happened. And he said when it actually happened, this big wave went through them. He said he could only describe it like the film with Arnold Schwarzenegger, when Sarah's sitting there and then the nuclear bomb goes off and you get this blast. And he said when it had finished, everybody was crying. He said he'd never known anything like it. The whole town was crying. So it was a bit more like more than an earthquake. Something else happened.
That was probably what they call, I don't know, what they call it there. Not an epiphany, and sort of the opposite of it there. When something could have happened that was pretty devastating and it didn't, but you got out with your teeth there and the skin of your teeth. It's kind of like being overwhelmed because of what could have happened and didn't. So it's like a shock, collective
he said
shock.
that everything was just like things were thrown around, that he just couldn't believe how far they'd been thrown. He said the ground was just going backwards and forwards and sideways and backwards and forwards and sideways all at once.
Yeah. Bad news, an earthquake, actually. Pretty bad news.
The closest I've ever been to one was being in America, but my aunt took me down to Disneyland in Los Angeles, and they lived in San Jose. And while we were down there, a 7-point-something earthquake happened. That's the closest.
Yeah, the biggest I've felt are, if a forklift with a heavy weight on the front, a pallet full of stuff goes over a crack or something, you feel kind of thump, thump. Most of the earthquakes I've felt have not been much more than that. Just like heavy machines hitting a crack or something.
We get them in the
Huh?
UK as well. They're just much smaller.
Well, you'd have a lot more if they were still fracking, but they banned it there, I think. Eh? They put 2 and 2 together pretty quick. Said fracking, earthquake, fracking, earthquake. Hey, could fracking be causing earthquakes? Jolly, I think so.
Oh, they'd want to do the fracking then, wouldn't they, just to cause earthquakes?
It does.
Still fracking it.
Yeah. Well, in America, they're doing frack and pray. They're refracking all of the old fracked wells to see if they can get any more out of it. So anywhere you see those wells, they're just going over them a second time, see if they can get a second wind out of them.
Squeeze a little bit more.
Yep. Actually, it pays because, they can dump any type of, garbage, sewage, anything down there and just call it fracking material, So if you have a company and you got to get rid of a bunch of, it doesn't matter what, arsenic or acids or whatever, you call up a fracking company and they come, load it into their tankers, and they pump it into their wells. They can frack with anything. It's just high pressure liquids breaking apart rock. And they do use anything. There are places where they fracked where stuff has oozed back up out of the ground and contaminated people's ponds and other stuff. It's disgusting. But again, they got guns, and if you try to stop them, they shoot you, usually. That's what they did in New Brunswick. People tried to stop the fracking and weren't actually successful. But that's because the frackers went to court, and the judge, who's owned by the oil companies and all his buddies and all these clubs that they're in, said, "Oh, you poor fracking companies, these citizens don't want you polluting their well water. Those stupid people. We're the law. Go pollute." And they sign, go pollute.
I think we've had another guy called James, but from New Zealand. And he sort of, in his mind, he's worked out that there's a whole program of fear, and they make money out of us.
Absolutely. Fear. Horror movies are big in the industry, real big. Horror, people pay to be scared. I think partly it's because we're so controlled in this world. When you go see something like a horror movie, it gives you can actually look away when something's too bad. It gives you a sense of control. And that's what people don't have. Security, a sense of security or control of anything. It's a welfare state they've turned this world into. They've created total dependency of everybody. And then they say, "Oh, you're a lazy bum." No, I'm not a lazy bum. Shut down everything. They monopolized everything. And, they don't want to pay nothing. They don't want to hire no one.
I kind of worked it out. It was some form of communism they got us in. Because they're controlling us with subversion all the time. And that's all linked with, to me, communism. And
well, it's American military. These controls have been put in long before the concept of communism was ever invented. That's just a new game that was invented by, I think, 6 Jews and a Gentile.
Yeah, what I often
say...
say...
When we were at school, they were already beginning controls. Before we were at school, our parents at school, they were beginning controls. Everything has been controlled. Until present day, we are controlled 100%. There's nothing we can do. Basically, we're not free.
They are very smart. They are very smart because they let us, the inmates, they see us as
police
inmates.
Each other.
They let us build our own jail cell. So therefore, we don't see it as a jail.
Yeah. Or we do.
Or we see it as a jail. There are a few that actually are so open-minded and also can see beyond that. But a lot of people are so indoctrinated by the system that they don't know that they are in a jail. How many often you hear people say in the city they want to leave the city but never do? Because they are accustomed to the way of living in that city, and and basically everything outside the city is also becoming the same type of city, same type of environment. And if you have even when the Jews were freed from Auschwitz in Germany, but a lot of Jews that wanted to stay in a concentration camp because they didn't know any better. It's ridiculous, but it is true.
Well, it's like the Helsinki syndrome, where your captors actually, you start feeling for them and caring for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they also you have a lot of people have the pride of building their own prison. And look how beautiful I built this prison. They don't say prison, of course, but they build this wonderful surroundings. They think they built it. They are basically instructed to build it, but they give the idea that they did it themselves.
They've engineered humanity into a damaged good now. Most people are damaged goods, and it's hard to fix some of the damage that's on the mental plane and stuff.
It takes a lot of waking up to see how the world really works and how you can.
Because it's layer upon layer upon layer upon layer upon layer upon layer.
Lies upon lies
upon lies upon lies. Nothing's real.
And the thing is, so many.
Well, yeah. I've jokingly sometimes say most of the politicians are inverted Pinocchios. Inverted Pinocchios. If they speak the truth, their nose will grow.
Oh, Pinocchio.
Inverted Pinocchios, yeah.
Pinocchio, yeah. But James, sorry, you called it earlier Helsinki syndrome. It's not Helsinki, it's Stockholm.
Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Close.
He was close.
He was in no
cigar.
But no cigar.
Recap. Stockholm.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Stockholm syndrome, where the prisoners became, whatever it was.
Well, we will spray the Mandela effect over this hangout, and we will say Stockholm when you watch it.
Well, you actually see that a lot. You take in regular society, you get women who are terribly abused by their mates, and they defend them.
Yeah. It's the same.
If you see a guy beating up a girl, his wife or whatever on the street, and you try to help her, she'll attack you.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've seen it, yeah. It does happen.
So it's
which is frightening.
It is, yes.
Unfortunately, though, I'm not making excuses, but really, life is this generational cycle of victim upon victim upon victim because of this thing they've made. We're just victims.
Well, they tried to make everyone, pull out the lint in their belly button, analyze it, and stick their thumb in their mouth, and get into a fetal position, and feel sorry for themselves or something. I don't know. It's a pathetic humanity. Well, the thing is, they've done a great job of lying to us and taking away the idea that there might be more exploring we can do, different life we can have. And
yes,
they say, what do you want to be when you grow up? A policeman, a nurse, a fireman, an astronaut? So, I mean, you have such a limited, like a horse with blinkers on they're giving people, and that's their world.
Yeah, that's why I call it a form of communism, because when they love to lie to you like this and make it so fake, what they've done is they've taken your freedom away, because people believe space is real and it's fake. So that's taking your freedom away, because people believe a whole thing that isn't real.
Well, the thing is, partly too, life is about language, and we've been given a false language in the sense a whole bunch of false words like nebula and dark matter and black holes and neutron stars, and the thing about a neutron star, again, totally opposite reality. the closer you try to push two neutrons together, the more they repel each other. So the idea that stars can be made entirely of neutrons which want to repel each other, that are so packed, tightly dense that even light can't get out of them and stuff, is nonsense. But yet, these stories are more colorful than reality, which is rather dull.
I think that's why people fall for this, you know, because it's so fantastic and it's so, like you said, so colourful and so, it's so extreme. It can't
And
possibly
you feel
happen.
smart when you can parrot all these things.
You have to believe it, you know. It's
Nebula.
They've made space romantic. You know, people go,
Yeah.
space. Oh, look at the space rocket, darling. You know, it's all about, oh, they're in love with space. It doesn't exist.
They're in love with their imaginations. Because, again, partly, if you don't have your own ideas in your own life, you're living the fantasy of someone else. So all these people who are, you know, NASA brown nosers and, you know, I shouldn't say that, but NASA fanboys, they don't have a life of their own. Someone else is creating their ideas, their concepts, their reality.
Can I
They
just
can't
say one
create
thing
their
on
own.
that, though? When I thought the sun was 93 million miles away, it looked 93 million miles away, because you can't even have a concept of what 93 million miles away, but it's so far away that that's what you believe. And then once you realise it isn't, you realise it's just there. The sun, well, what we see is what we call the sun. It's just there. It looks miles away. It's not. What? Oh. And I just put it down. I made a little video myself because obviously I found this footage where these two astronauts, it's like one of the first footages I looked at. These astronauts were outside. It was Boeing and somebody else's first trip outside. And basically, one of them's moving around and the other one is paused. And it's stuck there, paused, which means they weren't together. It wasn't live. It's fake. And the whole thing. And it's like if they have to go that far to lie to us, but still people don't see it when there's a paused astronaut. CGI, lie.
When they were doing the Apollo stuff, I found one little clip where they're loading, quote, an astronaut into that little hole that they call the hatch to get into the little spacecraft. Well, when you look really carefully, because I was able to stop the film and zoom in a bit and check it out, it's supposed to be they're loading the astronauts for a trip, but they're loading an empty spacesuit, and the hands and wrists are actually tied behind the model or the suit. They're loading an empty dummy, and they're all filming it like, and one guy's carrying their big bag of, you know, stuff, you know, a big suitcase to, you know, take to space with them or whatever.
Have you seen that? I mean, I've watched it now. I mean, they're outside and they're doing absolutely nothing except arguing with these bags.
You ever see the size of some of the tools they have?
Sorry?
They got these tools, you know, some hand tools down here can weigh like 10 pounds easy, 12 pounds, some drills, some, you know, whatever. And, well, they've got all this hardware up there. You see them, they got these like drills and stuff and all kinds of, and it's all steel. It's all mass, you know. For every pound you bring up, the ISS quote, it's 14,500,000 feet up. 1 pound, you have to use minimum 14,500,000 pounds of energy to get it up there. 1 pound.
Oh yeah, but they come up every week with the hand towels. Do you know that? That one that looks like Methuselah. She was taking everybody around filming around the ISS, and she was talking about they used a lot of hand towels, and they get brought up once a week. She says that on one of her videos. Yeah, right.
Oh, really? Eh? Maybe they have a Chinese and a laundromat somewhere on the space station.
Yeah, that's just round the corner.
$5 extra. I fold your clothes.
What do you believe they're in? I think they're in a 747 flying around.
I'm in a pool and in these props on the ground, and it's more practical to do a lot with wires on the ground than, you know, the.
Because I kind of worked out, you know, when I don't know how they do it exactly, but you know how the water moves in the ISS space station, it's bobbling around. As we're made up of mostly water, surely our bodies would be moving the same, like the water.
Like jello-y and
I
squishy
don't know how
and
they
then
do it exactly.
reinflating.
They squeeze out some honey and it comes out really weird and sort of sticks there.
Well, some of those scenes are, virtual reality type of compositions they're doing there. Right? Things are on different layers, and they're just good actors. They're looking at a screen in front of them, and they practice.
They're always putting their hands up because they're doing those. They're doing that plane doing the G-force thing, and they're always putting their hands up. It's just like, just because that thing can only do it for so many seconds. And someone said it might take them weeks to do a film because they only get so many seconds, and then they've got to put all those seconds
together. If they were
together.
really in space when, like they're sort of sideways and stuff, they wouldn't have to strain like they're trying to get upright. Like they know where there's up and down. If you look carefully, like in some of these, when they're slightly sideways, their necks are always tilted upwards. If there were really no gravity, they could be a perfect board, straight up and down, any angle, right side up, upside down, any angle.
They'd be 1/6 of their body weight, wouldn't they?
Well, 0. They're supposed to be in almost no gravity, but the thing is, they're contorting like they're fighting to keep their head up because, again, your blood pressure and other stuff, when your head's not in the right position, it gets uncomfortable. Your face goes puffy, whatever. But they're always straining to try to, whether it's subconscious or just the way the body reacts to being twisted. You, like a cat, it'll try to land feet first. These guys, there's like an S. Their back goes straight, and then their neck bends to try to be vertical. You see, they're always fighting to get vertical.
You've obviously seen the one who is she's holding on to something, and she starts to she's going up, and what the funk? What's going on? Obviously, they ain't real.
Well, I've got a video out where the astronauts' feet aren't even there. They're see-through. They're transparent. And I mean, you've got to look at them. They look so awkward. They almost look like they're sitting in something. That's because they're in harnesses.
It's such a joke, and I cannot understand that people still hop for that shit, because it is shit. It's total crap.
And if you watch the motion of these people, sometimes when they start to move, you can actually tell they're being pulled by wires by someone off stage somewhere, or controlling a servo and a winch, So, but again, when you're a NASA fan, you can't see that. Everything is perfect. Well, I understand that, because when I was growing up, I could look at, these astronauts and these moon photos, and it was real to me. I had no reason to think it was anything else.
No, I think did it. I think that film with Sandra Bullock changed everything. Gravity, because it was more good. It looked better on that film than it did in reality.
Yeah,
they should reality. It would look like the film. Yeah.
They should leave it to Hollywood.
Gravity film helped change people's minds, because it made them think.
Yeah, if science fiction, or if science and the space wasn't science fiction, it'd be fine. I don't mind it as science fiction, but I do mind them selling it as fact.
Yeah, and getting a lot of money.
Too much.
Way too much. What I also said to people I know. For instance, if space was real, we all know it isn't. But for instance, there was other planets. Actually, if they had the money they give NASA, spend it on the people on the Earth and solving the problems on the Earth first. That's far more important than shooting some rockets into space. We should take care of the people on the Earth first before we do anything else.
Well, I don't know if you heard very recently, there was a report about Dr. Gallo. I don't know if you know that name per se. It's from the 70s.
No, not really.
Well, here's the scoop. There's big investigation into AZT, which was a AIDS drug. Now, part of it led back to Dr. Gallo. Now, Dr. Gallo is the, quote, physician who single-handedly and without validation from other scientists claimed to have isolated the virus that caused AIDS in people, the human HTLV2 virus. That was adopted, but not verified. Now, there was no such thing. And that's confirmed now, even by the current, what's the Surgeon General in the USA. This all came out and is finalized, but he made it up. There was no AIDS. Wow. The cure, he owned part of it. But the problem with AZT, that's what was compromising people's immune system, and it was engineered to do so. So people would take AZT, believing they had AIDS, wind up with complications, and die from the AZT. So that's why it's a big deal now. People who thought they had AIDS did not have AIDS. And if you think you have AIDS now, trust me, you do not have AIDS.
That's
that was another scam.
And of course, the AIDS medicine are very expensive, so therefore they make a lot of money.
It was $8,000 a year for the AZT.
Yeah.
My favourite word for all this, I just can't find another word apart from treason and disgusting.
They were murderers. Dr. Gallo was just a eugenicist. There's a film of Dr. Gallo being interviewed by two students who pretended to be like, Illuminati, like, kill them all type of, euthanasia, whatever. But anyway, they tricked the doctor into laughing about bringing AIDS to America, about all this stuff, about injecting people with it and starting it. And it was pretty funny. These kids, filmed them before they were supposed to film them and stuff, and sort of baited them. But this guy was a real sleazebag. And that information was out for decades before this information on the AZT, and these final chapters on the AZT murders and AIDS fiasco have come to light and been kind of fully investigated. No, there was no AIDS, and it's just a scam. And in fact, with an intent like that and a design like that, it is murder. I don't care what anyone says. If you invent a fake disease or claim to know what's making some people sick and then work and get a cure that actually makes them sick that way, there's intent. Tell people they have an immune deficiency problem and then give them medication that makes their immune deficiency
I think
bad.
all of this has the word intent on it, isn't it? Because it's the same as
it's very
lying about space with intent.
It is absolutely.
Oh, he's frozen again.
And it was, gosh, what's going on with me? Can you hear me?
No.
Yeah, you're okay now.
I'm okay now. Okay.
Yeah.
I can hear you guys fine, and I can see myself moving. So yeah, weird.
Yeah.
But I've seen this report.
He's frozen again.
You can save bandwidth without your camera. That might help you a bit.
Yeah, turn your camera off.
Indeed,
Turn your
James.
camera off.
Yeah, that's a good one.
He's still not there.
I'm not here.
Only turn your bandwidth off, not the whole thing, Astral. I'm just kidding.
That'll help.
Right, but many years ago, there wasn't any illnesses. People had fine teeth. They were healthy. There was nothing wrong with them until Westerners came. You need to have this medicine, and you need to have this, and you need to have that. There's epidemics. People are dying. I mean, dying, like really in the millions. It's all because of the Western medicine and the Western influence on Africa.
And the food.
Up until then, they didn't need any help. There was nothing wrong. I mean, okay, people, of course, they're going to die when the time came for them to die, like old age or whatever, But without our influence, they would have been fine. With our influence, and we made them die a lot faster, and that is fucked up. Sorry to say, but that's just despicable, in my opinion.
Well, I'm not sure about the USA. I'm sure it's very much the same there. But here, you can be perfectly healthy, wind up in the hospital for 3 or 4 days. And believe it or not, if the doctor doesn't like you, he can cut off your food, cut off your water, and let you die. They have the power of life and death. And with no real overview or control,
And you always
they play God.
and often hear that there are viruses in hospitals. We have that virus in that hospital. We have another virus in that hospital. So there are always viruses floating around for some reason. Because my dad went to the hospital a couple of times for something. He had something in his hand that he was drilling, and he had a drill bit in his hand and to take it out. And after that, he was 6 for months because he went to the hospital. He never gets sick. He only gets sick when he goes to a hospital. After that, he always is sick for a couple of weeks.
In Montreal, an operating room in a heart surgery wing of the Royal Victoria Hospital, everyone who went for surgery died. Well, for a while, they thought it was just, they were bad hearts, but a lot of them wound up on the coroner's table, and one of them finally had sort of like enough evidence to shut down that OR. What it was is the air conditioning ducts were so full of aspergillum and the sewer mold that when they opened up a person's chest, these spores would get in, and when they closed it up, the aspergillum would go crazy and just turn their insides black and kill them. That's a hospital. Yeah. Billions a year at that hospital, and they can't clean a conduct.
When my dad was in the hospital a while back, and indeed there was a cleaning lady with a very dirty brush was cleaning all the all the curtains. All the dust was flying around that room. And my dad said, "Oh, we're gonna leave for a minute till the dust settles." So I walked with him around the courtyard and till the dust was settled. But then he said to his sister, "Why are they cleaning it and all the dust is flying? Why don't they use a Hoover or something like that?" We have to look into that. Well, they never do, of course.
Well, in human anatomy and stuff, there are 2 ways people fight an infection. You either have aggressive genes or recessive genes. Now, when you have aggressive genes, if you get an infection or a virus, bacteria comes into your body attacks it right away. As soon as it knows something's wrong, it tries to kill it, and does, but doesn't learn anything from it. That means the same virus can come back again in 2 weeks on you. That's if you have aggressive genes. If you have recessive response, what your body does is it allows a partial attack, and then your white blood cells take apart some, identify stuff in it, and record it. So the next time that particular, immune substance comes in your body, your immune system knows it and can go right away to take care of it.
You're making it sound like we're robots.
Well, I've been there before. Look, sugar, nice sweet stuff. It's made of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. A metal and water. Yet it tastes good to us. If you think of your body and how you're built, you have tubes. Systems, robots, other stuff have tubes and pipes. We eat metal. Carbon is a metal. We eat metal. We breathe metal.
Plastic. We're eating plastic, aren't we? As well.
Oxygen. Yeah. Oxygen is a metal. We need it to survive. We breathe a super liquid metal to live. See, air is not air. Air is nitrogen with a metal, a highly reactive oxidizing agent. It's extremely potent oxygen, very reactive. We got 20% when we breathe it in, and we use it. We use the water that we drink. But oxygen is a metal. The food we eat are metals. The carbon in your body is a metal. The calcium in your bones are metal. So when you say it sounds like we're robots, you're right, but not heartless, soulless robots. We have to have a shell. We have to have a structure. You know, if we're going to have feet and move around, we need a corpse, a body, something, a machine. That's what our body is. It carries the host of our spirit or our thought. But it's a robot. It's a metalloid. It's in a metalloid, a super metal environment. And yes, we are robots, but not unfeeling like machines and like Terminator. It's just a device that hosts us. But yeah, you're breathing metal. You're eating metal.
We're breathing in
You're
free
made of
energy,
metal.
aren't we? We're breathing in the free energy.
Well, a lot of people, I'm convinced now that the real electricity or wave energy that allows us to do what we do really comes from the oxygen and the 7% hydronium in the water that we drink and get in our food and stuff. Those two things are actually more key to life than food. We can go days and weeks without food. You can't go like 5 minutes without air.
You can go longer without food.
You can go 30 days without food if you're careful.
You can go much
Don't burn too much
longer than
energy.
30 days without food. Much longer.
Yeah. See, part of, you know, people enjoy eating, so we eat. Some of the protein stuff, it's not for energy. It rebuilds cells. Our cells are, you know, different proteins.
We do need
Arginine, lysine.
not just to breathe and to quench our thirst. I mean, certain, like, what is it? I can't remember which way around it is. Is it one, like the air and water creates heat in our body? It creates all these things. We need them. We need them to make our body work.
Well, we believe we need them, but there are people that they don't do anything. They're what they call breatharian. Murphy talks.
One journalist spent about 2 months with a Hindi. They're not priests. I forget what they call them, but a Hindi guru there, one of these meditating Hindi guys, who never eats and never drinks. And he spent 2 months with them, and the guy never drank a drop of water and never ate a leaf.
Well, there you go. Proof in the pudding.
You know, we have eyes, but I know we don't need them to see. We certainly believe we need them to see, but we don't. There are, you know, I could tell you this way, I can take 2 products and I can activate my pineal gland. I can close my eyes and I can see everything around me. Okay, I need chemicals to do that. But in India, there are kids with a blindfold on. You can put 10 cards down on the table in front of them and they'll tell you what every card is.
Yeah, but is it true, or is it some kind of magic trick that they're trying
It's not magic. It's not magic.
No, but I've also seen them, James. You know, I'm in doubt unless I see it with my own eyes, and I can if I can do the test myself under my own conditions. I don't believe it.
Yeah. I understand that. You'd probably want to get in touch with one of these kids and give them a test, and I think they'd blow you over.
I feel it. I've seen it, and I understand where you're coming from. I have seen it myself. Young kids on stage, you know, they write something down on a piece of paper, and these kids can read it. They read what they said. But the clip that I've seen, they've had a camera, they've got in. Yeah, I mean, come on, man. anyone can fucking fake that, can't they?
Yeah, anything is
Sorry.
possible, and there is a lot of, charlatanism out there, and absolutely,
exactly. So unless I can say,
So I still take it with a grain of salt. You're right to, have questions, but I know I can activate my pineal gland and I can see without my eyes.
There's
So
no doubt about that.
I don't need confirmation. I can do it.
There's no doubt people have the ability to do it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That without a doubt, I understand that. These yogis and people that into deep meditation and stuff. I've been trying to do it for years. I've not got there. I mean, I've seen flashing lights. I've seen blue and purple and all sorts of, but I'm not there. I've not opened my third eye. Not yet. I'm on my way.
So, Jimbo, how did you get into all this then? Because you seem quite informative here.
Well, at first I started doing some stuff on that NASA stuff, and their fakery when I finally, came to the realization, like others, that it was total bogus, total nutsoid stuff. And I was watching some of Jaren's vids on NASA, Jaren and Melissa, and at one point he did something on Flat Earth or something. So things started popping up, I guess, in my YouTube Flat Earth, I had done 9/11 to the hilt. Just did everything, and then eventually just. Yeah, I know it was through Jaren somehow, through one of his videos or something there, because I actually liked, when he was doing his NASA videos and stuff, they were a lot of fun. They were a lot of fun. I mean, song and dance with Melissa and stuff, they were cool, I mean, it's changed since then, but at some point he mentioned Flat Earth and other stuff, and anyway, this.
He thinks, well, they think that NASA take notice of globe busters, don't they?
Oh, all of it. They're watching all of this, everything. They're recording it. They're going over it with fine-tooth combs. They're having computers analyze it. They're planning, attacks and everything. Oh, it's on their plate. They have to stop this.
I'm hoping that maybe we can stop them.
Well, they can't. Like I say, there are some things that are possible and some things that are impossible. The Earth will never be a globe. They've lost. There's too much out. I spent $400 on one light, and I'm happy with it, and it'll work for some tests. But I plan on going a little bit upscale. I'm probably going to get a Marine Searchlight, 3,000 watts. I have to research it because I don't want something that weighs 100 pounds. It has to be practical. But a 3,000 watt searchlight and some coastline and shoreline on the other side and good distance between. And, I don't have to build a whole damn lighthouse. And these products are there now. We can just take some money and buy them and use them, get around and plug them in and check things out, Everyone wants to send balloons up to the sun and do this and that. No. My feet are on the ground. I have to be practical. And, for this to be good for anyone, it has to be tangible. If again, you can't see it, feel it, or touch it, I mean, it's sometimes hard to believe or accept, It can't be a faith-based thing. They force that issue that,
There is a
at
question.
some point.
In the chat, can I ask you?
Yeah. Rich, go on, you do it, Astral.
Yeah, you said that you activated your pineal gland. How did you manage to do that?
With chemicals.
DMT?
No, not even DMT. These are, stuff that anyone can find anywhere and pretty well any pharmacy. But I will not tell you the combination because it'll get to kids and other people, and then it's just like too much. It's just a responsibility that I'm not willing to give up that one. There's some things I will tell, I don't mind, but that one could hurt people, so
But
no, it's
on a legal note, anyone that's interested, I've heard you can go to Portugal and do ayahuasca and dimethyltryptamine totally, because everything's legal there, apparently. There you go.
well, I think the ayahuasca is used in the Latin Americas to cure different addictions, including alcoholism, cocaine addiction, and others. The ayahuasca apparently brings you in contact with a spirit, a healing spirit, and it works for a lot of people.
God, the spirit molecule they call it, and DMT. It's also found in psilocybin mushrooms, magic mushrooms, and people have managed to free themselves of addictions to not only nicotine, cigarettes, alcohol. They're doing tests at Johns Hopkins Institute, MAPS, where they're doing a study on the effects of psychedelics on our psyche and things, and it's having profound effects on people, especially with people with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, where they're having good results. So I'm all for that. Anything that can help, anything
It's
that's
like
natural.
MDMA, the love drug they called it. It was found to be useful for couples that were in serious problems and in risk of divorce and stuff. And couples that took MDMA
that's
often
chemical,
healed their, it's chemical.
That's a chemical, man-made chemical. Yeah, I've heard that as well. They've been doing that, where they've managed to...
Then it became a party drug and wound up on the illegal substance board.
Ecstasy.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because, all of these drugs, they all have different families. The hallucinogenics like DMT, LSD, psilocybin, they don't get you high. They trigger an increase in the hydroxyserotonin in your brain. They can raise it from the 10% average that it is normally to 16 and 17%. And it's that extra, serotonin that gives you all the visual effects, distortions, auditory, happenings. But the drug itself is just a trigger that increases the serotonin in your brain. And the brain chemical, serotonin, is what gets you high.
That's wrong what you're saying there. It's not serotonin, it's dimethyltryptamine that's in the pineal gland that is activated. It's like near-death experience. And when that gets activated...
I'll have to look that one up, because I really didn't do much studying on that side. From what I learned about, chemistry of drugs in the brain, is that the psilocybin, all these amide derivatives and stuff, wind up triggering an increase in the 5-hydroxyserotonin in your brain. It's related to tryptamines. I mean, dimethyltryptamine is a serotonin. It's a type of serotonin.
Yeah, we have it within us, and they say that when you die, that amount of dimethyltryptamine it's in the pineal gland. It's released. It's also the same when we're born. It's released, and then we're born. When we die, it's the same. It's released, and we die. And then wherever we go. Sorry, but that's what they say anyway. Apparently.
Well, they're important. All these brain chemicals and stuff. And the fact is, I really believe that if there are mushrooms with special properties, they're there for a reason.
Exactly.
I mean, the Creator didn't put them there for nothing. To demonize everything on God's green earth here is just wrong.
And I think there must be a reason why it's illegal worldwide. Why the fuck is a mushroom illegal worldwide? I mean,
That's because if people get illuminated a little bit in their own thoughts and ideas and figure stuff out, it's dangerous for the system. They don't want to trigger any independent thinking.
Exactly.
So they cut off the drugs. You got very oh, no drugs, let's drink booze. You're not going to get very much spirituality out of booze.
No, we need our spirituality. That's where we need to go. We need to find out who we are.
You can also clearly see that when you drink booze, you will drive faster your car and cause accidents. When you drink booze, the chances of you getting in a fight are higher. Actually, if you smoke marijuana or that
Because you
kind
lose
of
your
substance,
inhibition a bit.
well, you expand your mind. But you never heard a story about somebody smoked marijuana and got into a fight. Somebody smoked marijuana and drove a car very fast.
No,
Because
no
you
one ever
don't do
died of a
that.
marijuana overdose. Ever. No one ever died of a marijuana overdose.
No.
I never will.
But you can,
Never will.
but you can drink yourself to death.
Oh, easy.
Unless of
Yeah,
course,
alcohol
blood
poisoning.
thunder.
Most people don't realise that when they're drinking like that loads, they're actually making themselves depressed. Alcohol is the biggest
It
depressant
is a
ever.
depression, yeah. Me, the way I put it is that they think they're
Someone who's an
sucking out of the
alcoholic.
bottle, but eventually the bottle's sucking out of them.
Yeah.
Yep.
But they're doing it to themselves. They're making themselves depressed every day.
Well, it's possible that for some people with the problem with alcohol, it's how it's treated by the blood. Again, alcohol is related to other products, 2-carbon long, like formaldehyde or, well, acetaldehyde. And acetaldehyde is a potent euphoric. It takes very little, but when some of the alcohol in some people's blood is converted into acetal, it gives them a rush about like Coke. So for some people, that's one of the reasons they have a problem with alcohol. That's not everyone, but for some, it's because it's as strong a rush as someone who does Coke gets. It's that euphoric for them.
So, yeah, again, everything's the opposite. Everything's the opposite of what they say.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, it's so annoying that. It's really annoyed me that to realise we just leave everything back to front.
Well, in part, we've allowed them to fool us into thinking that we're not intelligent enough to know. In one example, like in Britain, they at one of these schools, they threw a party for the kids, the school did, which included beer and everything. But what they didn't tell the students was that there was no alcohol in the beer. Yet the students who drank acted drunk, threw up, partied like real drunks. But there was zero alcohol.
What does that mean?
Go figure. Well, it may mean that people behave a certain way because they believe that's the way they're supposed to behave.
It's like a placebo effect.
And the conditioning.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what
It's all in the mind.
Yeah, exactly. Mind over matter.
Mm-hmm.
Get drunk. So they get drunk. You believe you're ill, so
You'll get ill. Well, the Russians proved it. They did an experiment where a doctor, KGB doctor, took some of his patients, and when they came in with just a common cold and stuff, he'd come in with his reports and stuff with his head low and a sullen face and, well, tell them they were like basically dying and stuff. And guess what? Most of these people in that experiment died, and there was nothing wrong with them.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Scary stuff. But yeah, you can, if someone believes they're going to die, it's possible they actually die.
So they murdered them?
Basically. Oh yeah, that's not a problem. It's just like experiments. Look, in the USA, they can back up a diesel truck with contaminants in the diesel fuel to the air intake of a veterans hospital and pump in the gases to see what it's going to do to the old folk. And it's perfectly legal.
Wow.
Oh my God, they tell us we live in this world full of rules and regulations, and when it comes to it, we're eating plastic, children are eating rat poisoning, and it just goes on and on. It's just disgusting. That's my favourite word.
Well, it's really an open prison, and it's got to be changed. It's not the path for man and woman and
It's an
the next
open prison.
generations.
It's an open prison. We're in it, but we're also the jailers. We're stood at the door to it, you know, which is the craziest thing on earth, really, if you think about it. We are our own guards of our own prisons that we're prisoners of.
Well, I think I was more of a prisoner when I was watching TV. I stopped in about 2001. Before 2002, I stopped watching TV. And I've had a more full life for it. I mean, if you get home and you spend 8 hours in front of a box that's brainwashing you and telling you everything, you don't have a life. I'm sorry. You're going to cry at soap operas and,
They don't want us to think.
No. And they do want you to think. They want you to think their way, dysfunctionally, abusively.
Right, so they don't want us to free think. They want us to be
not
rational.
Yeah, that's why it's called a television. They want to tell their vision and indoctrinate you their vision. That's why it's called programming, television programming.
And entertainment. Enter, detain.
Yeah.
It is. That's what it's from. It's like the entranceway to a property or home. It's not an entrance. It's an entrance. It's supposed to be designed to entrance a person.
And that's why
call it an entrance.
And that's why they call it channels. Channel 1, Channel 2, Channel 4, Channel 5. Think about it.
What about apartment artists? You did that one yesterday.
Apartment building. Apartment complex. Yeah, it's a complex to set people apart. Very easy. Apartment. It's meant for apart, to set the people apartment. Yeah, always if you talk about people who live in an apartment block, a huge apartment block building, they always say, I don't know my neighbors, I don't know who lives there. And often a lot of people change in and out. They only live there for roughly 5 years at the most. That's why the name says it all. It's an apartment. You're living apartment. It's meant to be living apart, and it's complex.
Part of isolation.
A part of isolation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're living on top of each other. So yeah, it's and often what you see on all those high apartment buildings, all the USTM towers are there. Yeah, it's very high, so we put them all on the apartment buildings. And a lot of people get sick from it. I've seen a lot of documentaries of people living in an apartment complex. When they actually left, they feel a whole lot better. They get their sense of smell back. They get a better sense of hearing. They get every sense is better when they leave that apartment complex and live in the on the ground. Again, with the garden, with the more in touch with nature. I myself witnessed it when I was living in the Netherlands. I was living near an airport, and they always tell you, oh, the cars pollute, the trucks pollute, and everything on the road pollutes. But it's actually, they tell you it yourself. There's even a segment. They tell how much the cars and the traffic pollutes the air. It's only 5%.
You know how much fuel it takes to take off a 747 off the ground, just to take off?
A lot, probably.
37 liters.
The equivalent weight of a Volkswagen.
Yeah.
Of fuel, just to take off.
Well, when I was living in near that airport in downtown, near the big cities, I also have respiratory problems. A lot of coughed a lot, and I also had a mild form of asthma. And now I went to Germany, and I'm living now as far away from any airport as possible. also from any highway. And there's not a lot of planes flying over here because we're
Well,
not in the track of the airplanes. And after a month, I could feel my lungs
clearing
tingling,
up. Yeah.
tingling, and I got more air. And then after 2 months, I could throw my pills away, my asthma pills, and I never used them again.
Well, the jet fuel contains sulfur. They're not supposed to fly regular routes less than 10,000 feet for pollution and sulfur dioxide in the air and stuff. But all of their fuel in these jet planes is sulfur based or has sulfur in it. So that's an irritant right there. It makes sulfuric acid in the air, basically. And there's lots of them.
Oh yeah, there's more and more because it's basically what a lot of planes are doing are only rotating. I will try to say it in as good as possible with my limited knowledge of the English language. They basically rotate all the goods around. So what they do, they get them. There's a slaughter the cows over here. They transport it to another country. And there it's packaged and then it's transported back. So every time somebody makes money off it. That's rotating goods. That's what the most of the airplanes do, are rotating goods. So the people can make money off of every step. One is slaughter, one is seasoning, one is packaging, and one is... And they say, and sometimes they even say it's from another country. Yeah, that meat. This product was is from that and that country, but actually the meat was slaughtered maybe next door, but was transported to there, and then it was further made into a product, and therefore they can say, "Oh, it's from that country," but it's actually the meat is from could be from next door.
Well, at least it's still meat. If you go to China, if you go to a restaurant and there's field deer on the menu, it's rat.
Rat?
They just call it field deer, so that RAT, rat. They call it that so that tourists will eat it. If they called it rats, you wouldn't eat it.
You call it field deer. Most of the people assume it's a cow, or something.
It's rat. And Chinese are good. They got, I don't know if you ever saw like counterfeit eggs.
No, I never
saw. Oh, you want to see something appetizing? Do you want to do the research? Look up counterfeit eggs in China, and they'll show you how they're made and how they make the yolk and how they make the shell, all from the same chemical.
Wow!
And they look like perfect eggs.
I've seen counterfeit cheese. I showed you in an hangout. That
plastic
cheese. When you put a lighter on it, and it only gets darker, just like plastic. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not just field deer in China. The restaurants, if you don't eat all your noodles, they get strained, they get bundled up, and they get shipped back to a factory and reprocessed into new noodles.
Wow.
Gotta love China. They're frugal.
Very.
It's practical.
Hey,
they invented restaurants.
That's something that you know about, James, or that we know about now, right? But what about the things that we don't know about? There must be so much going on in food and of course, in the food industry, in restaurants and stuff that we don't know.
Just a second, I'm preparing my supper. Here, kitty, kitty, kitty.
Don't let Patricia stay here, you.
Well, that can get you like almost excommunicated from a whole community, even a joke about eating cats and stuff.
Oh yeah.
One person made that joke and almost.
I will say no. I will say and state this: there were no cats harmed during this live hangout.
No. We hear stories as well about. I'm from Manchester originally, right? And Manchester, where they have. Nothing against Manchester now, nothing at all, but this is only a rumour. I'm not saying that it's true. A lot of dogs and cats went missing around this area where all these restaurants were, all these ethnic restaurants, And put 2 and 2 together, you get 4.
Here, boy. Here, boy. Ar, 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 ar.
No, we don't know what we're eating. So best grow your own. No, grow your own so you know exactly what you're eating.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and some things are really actually very good for you. If you like get a bean sprouter and eat a lot of bean sprouts, it don't hurt you. You know, very good for you. A lot of things are actually good for you. Good variety, you know. If you're on the same food all the time, you can be missing certain vitamins and nutrients that if you had a bit more variety in your food, you'd make up for them in all likelihood.
Yep.
You know, and it's more fun. Variety is the spice of life, you know.
Oh yeah, for
But
sure.
there are a few things that can help your health and help maintain a good quality of life, but drinking chlorine and bleach is not one of them. Using industrial oxidants and diluting them in water and drinking them like peroxide is not advisable. You know, some of these quackery things that are out there, get wise to them because they
Also
can
what
hurt you
you
real
talked
quick.
about, that certain additive that that makes sure that you don't throw up the plastic food.
Yeah, phosphates, sodium
Yeah.
phosphate, phosphoric acid in sodas like Coca-Cola and Pepsi. If you take out that phosphoric acid and you drink a Coca-Cola, 100% you will puke. It's too much sugar. One can of Coca-Cola has 77 grams of sugar. It's almost 3 ounces.
White poison.
Yeah.
White poison.
That's what I call it.
And yeah, that's why they put that additive in there, so you don't throw up.
Don't puke. And in the cheese, if you know, there's no need for phosphoric acids and phosphates in cheese. None.
I think
Unless
anything
it's
that's
not
white,
cheese and there's stuff they're putting in that would make you puke.
Yeah.
anything that's white is bleached, and that's not good for you. White things are the evil stuff as well.
Oh, they bleach sugar.
Bleach sugar, yeah, things like that.
Yeah.
And the bread, the white, they bleach it so much they have to fortify it. That means simply add the vitamins back that the bleaching took out of them.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't get anything really natural.
There's nothing good in food. It's all been stripped away, basically, hasn't it?
Well, that's also with a lot of canned food. That you have peeled tomatoes in cans, or peeled mandarins in cans. What they basically do is throw the mandarins in acid, and then neutralize it after it with something like milk, and then put it in the cans. But they actually put it in acid so the outside skin of the mandarins or the tomatoes dissolve. And then they neutralize it and put it in the cans. So.
Well, it's like when they make, I guess it's gelatin. I heard that just a couple of months ago because I never really wondered how they got it or made it there. But apparently they take tons of bones and they add acid to it and they dissolve it all down until it's at a certain point. And it's all chemistry, man, you know.
Oh, they do it.
Tons of bones and thousands of gallons of acid, and you know.
Yeah, they dissolve it. They dissolve it into a paste, and then inject it back into the meat, so the meat becomes heavier, so they can earn more money.
I learned about meat glue not even months ago. I never heard of meat glue, and I've been in kitchens all my life. I never heard of meat glue. I would never buy meat that was meat glued if I knew it, but I've never heard of meat glue, and now I know I've bought a lot of stuff that had that freaking stuff in it.
Yep.
I know now, but I mean, when you don't know, you don't know. You don't know what to look for. You're not looking for it.
It's just like a lot of seasoning you buy in the supermarket. If you buy seasoning in the supermarket, it's almost every time 90% salt.
Chemicals.
The rest is herbs. So you're buying basically salt with it. Just a couple of ounces of herb in it, and some coloring to make it appear a certain.
You know. I was going to say, the food on put my teeth back in. The food on flights, when you take a flight, the food on flights is actually it's whatever chemicals and stuff to make it taste better. Because food, when it's tasted up there, it probably tastes shit or it doesn't taste of anything. So they have to obviously make it desirable, eatable, or at least
they do it with a lot of processed. They do it with a lot of processed food. They basically buy the cheapest ingredients for the processed food, and it tastes like shit. But they put a lot of additives and preservatives in there, so you're fooled in thinking that you're eating something nice, but you're basically eating shit.
There's a big industry. There's a science behind it all. Actually, I mean, you've got what they called.
Yeah, I don't know. It's something like, Gatorade
menus,
or those drinks.
Menus that will taste good when you're on a flight, and if you're down on Earth, it won't taste like how it does when you're in a plane.
Well, no, on the plane, they invented a few tricks that they didn't even do in the marketplace before, like soaking meat to make it puff up and heavier. So you're eating 4 ounce of chicken, and you're really getting 2.5 ounces of chicken that had like, an ounce and a half of water soaked into it to puff it up.
Yeah.
They started doing that in the chain stores here, and they were putting so much water and just soaking so much into it. The government had to regulate how much water can be soaked into meat legally to add weight to rip off people.
Legally. Do we believe that? No. But they've been doing it for years here, for sure.
Well, they had to pass a law in the USA to make taco smell, have at least 30% beef in their, beef tacos. Because they weren't even like 30%. It was like there was no beef in their beef taco.
Oh, they also did a test with the Kip Curry salad here in Germany, and they took I think about 5 brands of Kip Curry salad, and they looked what the ingredients are, and only one actually contained chicken. The rest was soya or other things. Not chicken.
Here we had a company that was selling orange juice to really thousands and thousands of schools, making millions of dollars. Mm-hmm. Well, comes to find out, they were cutting like almost 70% of it with, I guess it's beet sugar. So they were selling a little bit of orange juice, blended in and kept orange with beet sugar. So you weren't getting orange juice. It was marked orange juice.
Oh yeah, sometimes.
100%. But it was a little bit of orange juice with a lot of beet sugar fluid.
Let me interject. I'd have to say, any kind of food, right? Whatever it is, it ain't 100%, because believe me, if they can make 100%, 200%, they've already done it. So if it says 100% fruit juice, it ain't fucking 100% fruit juice.
Yeah, really.
No way. It's 100% profit for them, that's for sure.
Fruit drink. It doesn't even have to have fruit in it.
No, that's true. No.
Orange taste, like Orange Crush. Oh, well, they used to put 10% real orange in Orange Crush. La-di-da.
Well, there are even regulations for it has to be so much of the actual substance to make, you can call it a certain juice or something. There's even in America, there isn't a regulation for honey. You can call anything honey. If your corn syrup with some flavoring and whatever, and non% honey, you can call it honey still.
Well, companies do everything to mislead and mess people over. I when I was down south, I used to love these Jimmy Dean sausages. They're really, really good morning sausage and stuff. But one morning, I guess I was after a bender and stuff and just seeing blurry, and I go to the store and I see the package and grab it and go home with it. But it wasn't Jimmy Dean, it was Jimmy Bean or something, and it was, the whole package looked, exactly almost identical, but just a little, a little bit off just to be legal, and, they suckered me. And there are a lot of products out there like that, just
Oh yeah.
lookalikes that if you're not paying attention, well, you just got burned.
Yeah.
It's pretty gnarly.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about money. At the end of the day, basically,
Oh, yeah.
it's all about money, isn't it? You know, and these bosses, how much did we make last year? What? 25 billion? It's not enough. Get back to work. Figure something out, you know? How can we make it more? It's greed. Everyone's greedy.
But
The whole
yeah,
world has gone to pot
Yeah.
because it's ruled by greed. It's ruled by money and greed. That's the only thing. They don't care about our health. They don't
No.
care about anything but making money. And where can we go on holiday next year? No, we're not going to go to Mallorca. We're not going to go to America, or we're not going to go to Australia. Let's go somewhere better. Can't we go to Mars?
Yeah,
You know?
there are only kangaroos in Australia and sheep in New Zealand.
No, it's getting ridiculous. It really is.
Mhm.
Well, every day people are gnawing at them and gnawing at the bit, and it adds up. Like I say, there's times when you can almost see that these so-called authorities and NASA are reacting, to what
yeah.
goes on in these groups and stuff, as opposed to being in the forefront.
Mhm.
They're seeing and then they're reacting. That means basically we're in the driver's seat. They are trying hard to stop us, but from behind. It means we're moving forward and they're trying to jump in front of the bus to stop it. It can't work that way. Like I say, even if they wanted to stop what's happening, they can't, because they can't pull on a string to make the plane a ball. It ain't gonna happen.
I've just seen a message in my messages, and it says Star Trek is more believable. They're making a joke, but I have to hand it to NASA for running the longest and most expensive reality show ever conceived.
And
Awesome.
Yeah.
I have to remember
That's
that.
key.
having
Keith,
opened the biggest black hole in the galaxy right here on Earth.
Keith Norquist, his name is. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
He made people laugh.
I did mention, I don't know if you heard this, James, but I did mention a few weeks back, if you dig a hole in the ground, right, $1 billion, how many years do you think it'll take you? If you had a $20 bill to throw in that hole, how many years would you think it would take to fill up a hole with $1 billion?
Not that long. It's 1,000 million, a billion. Depends. There are two definitions of a billion.
Oh, sorry.
There's the British billion and the American billion.
And the time is every 2 minutes? Anyway, it was 96 years. It takes 96 years to throw all his money, all his notes into this hole. 96 years for $1 billion. And I'm thinking, bloody hell, man. When you think of it like that, it's like, wow. And how much do they spend a day?
Well, in November of 2012, I think it was, CNBC ran an article about indictments against 3,000 people, all related to the Obama crime wave and administration. And the lawsuit was for a $43 trillion fraud.
Wow.
Well, the gentleman who actually posted it and ran the NBC website, well, before the day was done, by the next morning, his 2 children had been murdered and his housekeeper
Oh,
for posting that tidbit of information about the Obama mob. But yeah, there was an indictment in New York for 3,000 of Obama's friends. They're all, including that guy who was in the Justice Department there, Holder. Anyway, he was named in the indictment, but the total amount of the fraud was $43 trillion. Now, if you stacked $100 bills as close as you could to each other and filled the base of the 2 World Trade Centers, you could stack $100 bills to the 115 floors each, and you still wouldn't be at $43 trillion.
No.
You could fill a football stadium with $100 bills, and you'd still need another stadium to put money and another stadium.
Hmm.
Mind-blowing.
Yeah. We'll never understand. We will never really understand, you know, I mean, because obviously we're never going to have that amount of money.
Well, they have such a great system in there. Look, it's the fleecing of America. It's the fleecing of the world.
Is there that much money on Earth?
These elite want a nice sports center. Guess what?
There isn't even that much money on Earth. There's only $8 billion on Earth, isn't there? So, no, not 8 billion. What is it? Yeah, something crazy. But all the debt that we have, there isn't enough money on Earth to pay for the debt that there is.
Well, America said they sent 80 billion to American Insurance Group, AIG, and that 80 billion went to a former director of the CIA named Richard Stark, and he runs a company called Stark Holdings out of the Bahamas. And he actually is, you know, the top of, and that Stark Holding owns AIG, American Investment Group. So when Obama bailed out AIG, he was actually bailing out the former head of the CIA, who has this company down in the Bahamas. And I think he's the same Richard Stark that has the submarine franchise there, Subway. So, I mean, all roads lead to Rome. You know, 200 companies worldwide account for about 90 to 95% of all the money that's circulated. They suck up like a vacuum cleaner.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're related to the
It's
CIA.
all coming out as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's all coming out. All these CEOs that are resigning and corruption that's been, I'm glad to say.
But some of the best in these dirty operations are what they call the pink seals. They're the, what do they call them? They're basically like American commandos trained in, you know, special services, but they're all gay, or they've all been, you know, compromised into these weird things with, you know, real strange, you know, colonels and their bosses, if you will, their ranking authority. But anyway, they've been out doing lots of weird shit all over the earth, and some of them are actually like talking about what they've done, which is kind of cool. Sick, but it's cool. Some stuff is like giving dragon's breath to world leaders, getting photos and film that are really compromising, and then extorting them. Yeah. We'll take this part of your national capital and the revenues from this, and we'll need some from that too. Or this film will go out where, you know, you're playing Free Willy there, eh? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get reelected. Not with that film out, no. So if they can't compromise someone, they'll use, you know, criminal ways of compromising them and extorting them, their leaders.
Yeah.
And they're not in line.
I saw something on the news today here in Denmark. Not really the news. Is if it's holding. It's usually not. But anyway, one of the stories, it was a bakery in, somewhere in Denmark where they've been threatened, and they've been, like, people have come in and smashed the place up, I think 3 times.
Is the bread that bad?
Because, apparently, yeah. No, because they're not paying for protection.
Oh,
it's 2018. I'm living in fucking Denmark, and there's people running around smashing up bakeries, man. Wow. Give us some money, or we're going to smash up your joint.
Sounds like we're going. It's like mafia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in Montreal, we have a lot of different ethnic communities, and everyone has their group that goes out extorting their particular group. The Greeks have, like, I won't name him, but he's took over, you know, that type of thing from Greek restaurants and everything. The Vietnamese have the same type of thing. Pay, or, you know, people smash your store, set fire to your garbage and bag, just pressure you into paying. send people to start fights, whatever. Do whatever they have to, and they'll get their couple $100 a week from your business. Sometimes it's just like, it's unfortunate, but it's a compromise, You're making thousands in a week. Give these bums a couple of hundred, get them out of your hair. But usually, they're never satisfied. If you start with 200, then a couple of months later, it's going up to 3, So just.
It sounds
But
like
it's controlled too. Yeah.
It's just a sad world we're living in, man. It's a fear-based society, isn't it?
Hey, these things usually run right back up to the mayor's office and stuff, and the police chief, commissioners, and other stuff.
Yeah, for sure. It's
Things
corrupt,
don't
isn't
happen
it?
in a
The whole
vacuum.
way. No.
Well, even police,
I believe we're all good people. There are some rotten apples in a barrel, aren't there? And they influence others, and they upon others obviously determines what they want out of it.
I think it's gone beyond just the natural evolution of a few rotten apples here and there. Things are engineered. Agents push and move and pry and get into positions. They have agendas and they move forward. It's the cue. Like I say, selectivity and sensitivity, it gets the job done. It's using wisdom, things haven't got this bad by accident and just by the fact that, there's a bad apple here and there.
So at the moment, it's going the way they want it to go.
Because they've engineered it to do what they want, yeah. But again, it wasn't a perfect system. It wasn't a perfect plan. And there's a big, big hole in it now. And it's such a gaping hole. It's like, one of NASA's black holes. They can't even see how big it is. It's so over for them, But anyway, there are people who are determined who will keep trying different things. Like, I'm going to try something different. It will probably cost me a few $1,000s. I don't think it'll fail, but, it can't be stopped. I really want something that, it's dummy proof, And these things are, not extremely affordable, but hey, for the right thing, why not, I'm just going to be losing time and other stuff anyway until, some of this gets resolved or worked out. So in a sense, it's like an investment, because if I don't do it, I'll lose more time, Anyway, it's a bit of cash, but I think it'll be worth it. And we'll see. Like I say, I won't put it in a balloon, but I will put it in a light. I was checking out, because I do research when I decide to make a move like this, and I wound up looking at one guy's site, and he made a searchlight out of a garbage can, one of those, tin garbage cans, and put a Xeon core tube in it, and had his coils and his, power supply, and just beautiful beam of light there out of a garbage can. So, light is light, it's not the end of the world. It's something that we're pretty much used to, our eyes are used to, and, it's a de facto standard, So, I don't know. I kind of figure a bright enough light will cut through a little bit of fog, or a little bit of I don't know, evaporation over the surface of the water, it'll cut through, burn through some stuff. Like my little handheld light. I mean, I can light up trees like 400 or 500 yards away and actually see what I'm looking at. So, and that's just a little handheld light with a few thousand lumens, and it can be seen at 5 miles. If I get something, that's a couple of millions of lumens and pretty focused, I think 60 miles isn't out of the question, Might be able to someday take it and just go along the St. Lawrence River, because it opens up. It starts, pretty narrow, but as you go along the coast towards the Atlantic, it widens, and it widens quite a bit. So there are a lot of points to, measure or just shine across with someone on the other side and just, get some results. I don't have any long, flat enough bodies of water near me here. The longest stretch I have near here is 6 miles, and that's Britannia Bay to Shirley Bay, and the little light I have will do that, no problem. But I don't have a bigger body of water nearby, so.
James, haven't you thought of using what they call one of those little little mirror with a hole in it, basically? It's a signal. They've used those. That was apparently it's got the record for the greatest distance of light seen over distance.
Well, that's reflected, right?
Okay.
Just sunlight reflected.
Yeah, from the
mountaintop
sun.
to mountaintop.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, 60 miles or so.
No, I think it's more than that, much more.
Yeah. Cameras can pick up a mountain 200 miles away in the right conditions. Mountaintop to mountaintop. So even a light from there, you'd see that. If you can see the mountain, which is dark against the blue sky, you probably see a flashing light. I think just regular incandescent light is, for me, more practical and more visual, more vibrant than a laser. A little pin laser, just half an inch in diameter, and just, I don't know.
Got my little laser here.
Something to bite on, But anyway, that's a project that I'll really be working on and researching between now and next summer. And again, I have the little light to do some tests on Shirley Bay to the other bay, and then.
What are you hoping to find with your experiment?
Oh, it's just a 6-mile test. It's exactly 6 miles from one beach to the other. It's a flat body of water, like the canal in Bedford. It's basically like the Bedford Canal test, instead of I have a camera with a good zoom, but I don't have a P900. But the way I figure it, if I can have a lake close to the water level and someone can see it 6 miles away and even take a picture of it, there might not be, several feet of curve or something there over 6 miles, and then up the game a bit with brighter light and more distance.
Haven't you seen this video of what's it called now? Yeah, where they've taken a video from England looking over at the Isle of Man, where they can actually see Ireland.
Yes.
So
100 miles plus away.
There's no curve. If you can see Ireland, there is no curve. The Earth is flat.
Well, these boneheads will say it's refraction, it's this, it's that. Nonsense.
Full of shit. Coming up with full of shitness.
That's where I tend to say, like. On the one show, Nathan Oakley, where they did the expose of that series of photos and the blender demonstration in 3D of water levels and other stuff, and absolutely proved there's no mound of water between England and Ireland or the Isle of Man. It's case closed. But no, back up to the debates and the abuse, and there must be a drug in there somewhere. There must. Oh my God!
Yeah, let's move on. Fucking hell, man! Move on, Jesus.
If there was resolution, if there was more coherence and a forward progression, a lot of the sites that are out there now with their hat in hand wouldn't have a weekly show, some nice revenue streams and these donations, and they just can't figure it out. Let's send up 4 balloons. No, let's get on a boat. We didn't do it with 8 miles.
Funny.
Let's get a laser. Let's go to Budapest and let's try a 25-mile test. We failed on the 8 on the water, but let's just upscale it. We couldn't do it on 8 miles, so let's double, triple the distance and see if we can fail that way.
It's not about the Earth being flat anymore for me, anyway. I'm beyond that now. I mean, I know it's flat. I fucking knew that a long time ago. Robotham knew that a long time ago.
Yeah, I know it's flat too.
Well, every human on this earth experienced the world flat.
Flat. Yeah.
Yes, we're not a debating channel, you know.
No.
We're a flat Earth channel.
I went to flat Earth debates about a half a dozen times 2 or 3 years ago, and that was it. There's no more debate. I knew. I told everyone there's no debate. I told Pancho there's no debate. And the fact is, like I've said before, we are in the driver's seat. Yeah. They are the liars. We don't know the whole truth, but at least we're not the liars, and we're looking for the truth. And they remain the liars, and we remain the ones trying to figure stuff out honestly. So we have the upper hand. They got some money, some liars,
and actually,
shows.
Even though they're frightening us, they need the people, because without the people, they don't have any money, they don't have any control. They need the people.
If the tide turns on them, they're out of business. And everyone here, I'm sure, wants the tide to turn on these SOBs. Their whole network of spies and rip-off artists and con and this whole Freemason secret government game gotta go. We got to get them out of our school system, get the Jesuits out, and just move on.
Going off and all that, rather than actually debating or actually admitting their lies about what we live on. That's what I reckon.
You get back to the situation of pathological liars. Often when people tell the same lie often enough, they start to believe their own lies.
I tried to tell someone today, and then he said, well, what does it matter? What does it matter?
Yeah, that's the other aspect to it. Who gives a fuck? It's like, yeah, what?
You break out a whip, and you get him behind a loaded down little wagon, and you whip his butt, make him do 5 miles hauling, because he's no more than a,
You know what I said to him? I said, if you knew it was lies, and you knew it, you wouldn't want what we've got now.
No. If only they knew. Oh no.
I tried to tell him a few things today, and then he was going, yes. I said, do you actually understand what I'm telling you, or are you just looking like you're agreeing when you're not? And he said, you've got your opinion and I've got mine, even though he was going, yes. I thought he was actually listening to me.
Well, there's it's serious cognitive dissonance. It's real. I mean, it's like when you're scolding your kid, and it's going in one ear and out the other. But
we had to go through the same.
Think of it. People have a certain vocabulary. If a quarter of your vocabulary was given to you by a bunch of liars, and every word out of their mouths was a lie, and now it's yours. Like NASA with their nebulas, dark holes, dark matter, twin pulsars, quasars, on and on.
You're funny, you are.
I mean, all this fake knowledge that made people feel like they're smart is hard to let go of. It's letting go of part of your vocabulary. It's almost like
all that you're thinking about is some space that's millions and trillions of light years away or something.
Yeah,
and it isn't.
Yeah,
just take all the noughts off. Take all the noughts off everything for a start.
Yeah, I've simplified it. The lights in the sky are lights. We call them stars. They're lights. That's good enough for me. They're not luminaries. We give them all kinds of personifications and stuff. Damned if I can see a bear. Damned if I can see a hunter. Damned if I can see a lady emptying water for Verso. Darned if I can see fish up there. I can't see none of it.
Could you imagine it? Hey, I just saw a shark fly past.
But somehow people it's another form of indoctrination. And again, people have a belief system, and some of these people have a belief system that astrology is real. So You know, if something attacks that system, it's the same thing as going against NASA or anything else. When you go against a belief system that anyone has, you're going to come across resistance.
Mhm.
Because people can't let go. It's like
I'm
letting
not
go
sure
of
if somebody
reality.
came up to me 20 years ago and I might have thought they were mad. But I think you're right. You said, "Oh, I did the 9/11 to death," and I think that once you start looking at that kind of thing, and you know that's a set of lies, then when you get to the flat Earth bit, it's a bit easier to understand because I suppose it is a bit not frightening or it's worrying. You suddenly think. I said to this man today, "I've just told you your whole life's a lie."
No, his whole life wasn't a lie. He's been lied to
His whole
his whole
life.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And he's not to blame for it. None of us are to blame for it. We didn't ask for it. We didn't ask for the indoctrination, the bullshit, the lies, the abuse, the slavery, the taxes, the whole nonsense. We were born into it. We didn't ask for it. It wasn't voluntary. And
We
it's
fell
still not
for it,
voluntary.
believed it, absorbed
Well,
it, and
when
lived
you're
it.
a little bitty bitty baby and a young child, you don't know. You can't know.
I
And
tell
by
my
the
son,
time you
he's
do
5.
figure,
I tell my son, he's 5. Do you think that the Earth is spinning? And he's looking around. No, you know. I'm getting him thinking already. He's 5, you know, and he's very smart, very, you know. So I'm already. I know I'm indoctrinating him, but I'm hopefully indoctrinating him
well,
with
hopefully,
truths
well, and
that he
instead
can
of like
see for
saying it that
himself.
way, yeah, try to give them discernment and critical thinking. You
Exactly.
know, when
I give
someone's
him I give him
snowdrop,
clues and I give him clues and pointers. He goes on a roundabout and he's spinning and he's like, "Oh, I'm all dizzy now." Yeah, of course you are because you've been spinning round, you know. And then I say, "Hey, look at the sky. The sky. The clouds always seem to be going that way, don't they?" Okay, they move a little bit different directions, but mainly that way. Yeah. And he's thinking. I can see he's thinking. He really is a thinker. He's
yeah, and
got
watch
a.
out for suckering for authority. Resist authority. You know, and not with like punching cops
He
in the
actually
face,
came
but I
out
mean,
statement, James, and for the rest of you, and it kind of blew me away. And he was 5 year old. He does not believe in Big Bang. He doesn't believe in the Big Bang theory. And I was like,
he may be a kindred spirit, as they call him.
well, I can understand. I don't either, and we talked a little bit about it, very on a lower level, he impressed me, really impressed me.
Well,
5 year
even
old man.
something like the Big Bang, the whole idea that something can come out of an explosion that's creative is
Yeah.
almost lunacy. Bombs blow things up and destroy things. It doesn't create things usually. So the idea that our world was created by an explosion is right there.
I have
A
a
lie
can I
we're
can I
forced to believe in that yeah, sorry.
I have a famous favorite quote. It's by a guy called Edward Conklin, and it goes like this: the probability of life originating from accident is comparable to the probability of the unabridged dictionary resulting from an explosion in a printing factory.
Absolutely. Or a hurricane goes over a huge junkyard, and when the hurricane's finished passing over, a fully assembled, fueled, ready to go Boeing 747 is there in the middle of all the junk.
Yes.
That's a good
Yeah.
one.
There's millions of them, but I mean, they're all the same. It's all shit. It ain't gonna happen.
No.
But yet,
Face it, it ain't gonna
I just think
happen.
it's
I
incredible
mean,
that
God, logic.
to lie to us so badly. Like it's not just one accident or one thing's a lie. I mean, what's your take on the pyramids then? Because you were talking about energy and free energy and stuff like that. Just asking you, what's your take on them?
for me, if there's water running underneath them, it's like a captor of energy, basically. Anytime you have flowing water, you have electricity. And electricity doesn't have to have waves. and magnetism and energy does not have to have physical contact to move. You know, I say it and I'll repeat it here because you probably haven't heard it. There is no electricity on flat Earth. You can take the generation station, the power generator at Bay James. It is a metal copper wire turning in these magnets. It induces a pull on these large wires, but there's no physical connection at all between that turning generator and those wires. Now this push and pull, this rocking action that's forced upon the wire is all the way down the wire, right, to your post. But this push and pull, there's still no electricity. There's no electrons have flown. There's no movement of electrons. There has been none yet. This power, 1,200,000 volts, gets pumped out of Bay James, comes down the line, gets subdivided, and then 120,000 volts gets divided into a neighborhood and goes to these pole pigs. But still, these transformers, like the pole pigs on your phone post outside and stuff, with the thing with the 2 ears and the little tail, if you will, the wires are connected to it. They wrap around inductors. They're all insulated and no electricity flows. Induction. No physical contact of the wires. Now, from that big pole, the wires aren't touching anything in that transformer. On the other side of that transformer are your windings that are also insulated and wire that goes to your house. But there's no physical contact between the wires between your house and the power cords coming from the power factory. None. There's no contact. Zero. There's no electricity flows.
Anyway.
Pardon me?
It's all free energy anyway.
Yes. You know,
that's
the
what
fact
the pylons
is,
are collecting. The pylons are collecting free energy as well.
I don't know. I think partly by monopolizing our water supplies and making these huge dams and stuff, they've stolen our local supplies. If I had a small home with a branch or a creek running on it, a very small generator, I have all the electricity I need forever. As long as there's water flowing, I can put a little turbine and, you know, put some batteries, use some directly, have inverters, do whatever. As long as I have running water somewhere, I got free power. All you have to do is salvage a few mortars from washing machines or whatever, and hook them up. You know, a mortar wired backwards, basically, or, you know, used backwards, is a generator. A generator used the other way is a mortar. It's the same thing. It's how it's used.
They can get it from the ground as well. Somewhere I work, it's an old people's place, you know, like they have their apartments there. But the lady was telling me how they've dug into the ground and they get it from down there.
Well, some people bury different, you know, their trash metal and stuff, old cars or anything, all kinds of junk metal. They put it under the ground and they run wires to it. And as it decomposes, rots, oxidizes, whatever you want to call it, it produces electricity. So you can bury metal in the ground and have wires coming out of the ground and it'll give you electric current until there's nothing less to rust down. That's sacrifice energy, though. It's not exactly free. It comes at the expense of the oxidation of the metal. Yeah. See, it has to come from somewhere. If you're tapping it from, you know, solar energy, well, then you have to have something to trap those light rays or, you know, convert them and then store the power for when you need it. But it's not coming from nowhere. And it takes some materials to harvest this stuff, you know. Unless you have a really good supply of water flowing, then you don't have to store any. As long as it's turning the generator, you can run lights, refrigerators, anything. If you have a good stream of water and a good generator on it, you don't even have to have like batteries or backup or anything like that.
Should run 24/7. Depends on what you got to work with. But a lot of it's just materials. And, you know, I've seen guys like take 45-gallon drums, cut them in half, and solder them together, mount them on top of each other, and make wind turbines just like that out of 45-gallon drums. And believe me, they can turn like high torque mortars, which means, you know, the more resistance when you turn a coil through magnets, the more current you're going to get. So the higher the resistance of a mortar that you can turn, the better the power output of it.
Yeah.
It's like when you had the bikes and you had that little generator on the side of your tire.
Little dynamo.
Dynamo, that's the one. And you'd have to pedal like 50 times harder to get a little light to come
Yeah,
out.
used to take it off so I could bicycle faster. I mean, it was only a little
I
thing.
never used it. Yeah. Oh, and wow, that was inefficiency at its best.
Yeah, but we have
I remember
torches
when I was
nowadays.
young.
What you can, torch where you can wind them up, and you got to wind forever, you know. But you get 4 minutes of light, you know. Or
Oh yeah, or some of these
you
lithium
shake
batteries will last a month before you need to recharge them. You charge your battery twice in a year for your bike battery now.
Yeah, we're getting there, but we should have been there like hundreds of years ago. I mean, we are far behind where we should be.
Well,
I think we were getting there 100 years ago, and then they stopped it.
Well, we just had some crooks who wanted to profiteer, and they were pretty good at what they did, and they fooled a lot of people with their lies and their, well, linguistic babble and twisting words and freaking around with the science and the truth, but that's over. There's too many people onto them now. It's a done deal. Their pseudoscience is going down the drain. It really is.
Yeah.
Oh, I just realised that Artist has fallen off.
Yeah, it's late. It's almost 2 o'clock here. No, 1 o'clock.
Just see if Artist is coming back on. Not like him to fall off and not come back on. How long he's been gone, actually, because I've been sort of so interested in the talk.
It just dropped off a couple of minutes ago, Karen. I saw that about 5 minutes or so ago, I think. Maybe he's making a cup of tea, who knows? No, he might have just lost the connection.
Yeah, that's not like him. What do you want? Do you want to talk for a little bit more, Jimbo? Obviously,
I gotta go eat something actually because I'm getting a bit of a peckish. Make a tea and stuff. But what I could do is like we've covered a lot of ground, I guess, and stuff, and part of it is just like putting the brakes on some of the old paradigm and their fiction. Let's lose some of their insane math. Like I say, get rid of that 8 inches per mile squared. It's not circular math. It's retardation. And these globers, these globe scientists want to force people back to their full
ego.
Science. Yeah, and their deception. And
Deception.
that is part of their deception and their convolution and their confusion. And once the actual, like, either radians, grads, or rads are put in, even though it's not a ball, we're in a better place. Because we have to park their garbage, their pseudoscience, their pseudo-math, their mathemagics.
I'm not saying this way, because it isn't, is it? Because we're sort of, we've got the whole world is sort of against us. But I feel happier in my heart because I know more of the truth than living under the globe lie, which is all to do with egos and everything's wrong.
Well, I think even if I was wrong, I'd rather live in my own reality than another man's fantasy.
Yeah, well said, James.
Yeah.
Well said.
I have to say, I've really enjoyed this. You're a really great speaker and you know a lot of stuff.
Well, I'm glad it's a forum where I was actually able to speak a bit, because sometimes, honestly, I get trolls that literally are after me and no one else. That's why I avoid a lot of, going on air. Because
the chat room have been very interested
and
in
as
what
soon as
you've
I
been
get
talking
going,
about.
They're there to troll, and I'm not debating. I'm not fighting with no one. I have what I have to say. It's not fact. You do your own research. I'm just trying to help to put what I know out there that might help to get some of this nonsense, a little faster forward moving. Like I say, photos at different times of the day. Well, if you want to take a really terrible distance photograph over water, do it mid-afternoon on a hot day. Some of this brain dead stuff that's just keeping the wheels spinning and spinning and spinning has got to go.
Yeah.
And the people that are just playing the game, the hell with them.
It is a game,
like
isn't it, Jimbo? The whole thing, you're in a game.
Yeah, they'll beak off for 3 or 4 hours, and as soon as the donations, because they will taper off with time, and that's the end of the show. We'll be back next week with more trivial nonsense, and we can't quite figure this out. I'm a radio guy, but I mean, there's a radio guy who's just got some conventional, you can do some stuff, and then I don't know. You either produce hiss or get off the pot. You know what I'm saying? Like I say, this is running the gauntlet, and it's hurting people and hurting, what's going on.
Before we end this hangout, what is it you think that it is that some of us see this and know it and understand it, and others don't?
It's partly experience, and I always make the mistake of expecting people to know stuff sometimes that I know, and that's a big mistake because they don't. And, I don't know some things other people know, and that makes the hard part.
I like this group because of the people that come on here, like you, James, you open up so many people's eyes, and your input is so valuable. I mean,
well, one of the most important thing is getting light straight. Light is generated locally. It cannot travel billions of miles, never has, never will. So when we start to reconsider stuff, with a little less babble and a little more Occam's razor, they do come down to, a practical and sane level. Have to get out of the insanity, the non-standard alphanumeric input, the NASA, the scientism, the astrophysics bullshit. It's all got to go. And that's a whole big part of vocabulary. I'm ditching mine, when I hear black hole, yeah, right. Yeah. Neutron star. Yeah, right. So, that whole part of my vocabulary is in the trash, because that's the only place for it. The formula, 8 inch per mile squared, trash can.
I had physics. I had physics in school. Sorry, I had physics in school. Not that I was very good at it. I wasn't. I was far from good at it, but it happens to me, And I think now it's kind of, maybe that's why then, because it wasn't right, or it just didn't make sense at all, because it was all bollocks. I'm still learning every day. I'm still learning.
If you get a guy
that's one of the good reasons why. Sorry?
A physicist, quote, physicist like Neil deGrasse, who will do an embarrassing act, like, say, forget the fact that a body at rest stays at rest till a force acts upon it, and then he's part of the force that's acting upon a body, then he drops it and says, here's your proof of gravity.
Dickhead.
What kind of physics, science, or even, I mean, and you can tell.
Jimbo, Kathy in the chat room says you're smart. I'd like to give a shout out to the chat room. There's loads of people in there right now.
Yeah, hi everyone.
There's just too many names and they're popping up. But thank you so much, chat room, and they've been very interested. And a lot of them are now saying thank you, Jimbo, and great and everything like that. So thank you, chat room.
Well, I hope I wasn't too technically boring or anything like that, but we got to get it straight. you know.
I don't think
Awesome.
the chat room thought that. We've had a constant, steady flow of people watching this hangout the whole time.
Well, that's right on. I hope people take home a little bit of this and start reconsidering that light is local.
Here you go, Suzette. Suzette says thank you. The beer guy says thank you. Tommy says thank you. Martin says thank you. Mo says thank you. Jimbo.
Well,
Thank you,
I'm
Jimbo.
going to say thank you for all of them for being there
Thank you,
too.
Jimbo.
You know, thank you everyone, because it really is, it means something that you're there, you know. So
They're still coming in. Darren, Kathy, Ginger, URC, Child says love you all. Black Joker says thank you. They're all coming in now. Bora says thank you. Rob says thank you. There you go. It's all thank you.
well, I thank them
Yeah,
too,
cheers,
and thank
people.
you, and it's been great. And I have to really go rehydrate and eat something because I've really
Could
got
I
quite
just say,
peckish.
obviously you won't want to be coming on tomorrow, but would you come back on Sun and Moon and have
And
a
on
chat?
another date, I want to try to prepare some stuff and just, you know, have something coherent to put in when I do, or if I do, and not too soon after either there. But yeah, certainly one day we can plan something.
I
And
will email you, Jimbo. But yeah,
okay.
it's been a real pleasure and a really nice to meet you because I have seen you around.
Usually I'm whining and snarling and, you know, foaming at the mouth and stuff. So I'm surprised you hung around.
Yeah,
Oh,
we've spoke
you
before,
sound
me and you,
lovely,
Jimbo. But sorry, I was just going to say we've spoke before, Jimbo. But thanks once again. I'd love to hear your voice, man. You're a great. You have you want to be a storyteller. You have that voice that you could
you just
put
start
kids to sleep in like 3
once upon
seconds.
a time.
Yeah.
Start going to
Totally.
sleep.
Totally, yeah.
Wow.
Love it. But thank you very, very much, Jim.
My
Always
pleasure,
a
and good
pleasure.
night,
Still saying thank
everybody.
you.
And it's
They're
been
all saying
wonderful.
eyes wide shut. They're all
Yeah.
still saying thank you in the chat room. So
Y'all have a great night. Thanks everyone in the chat room there. God bless you all and keep it
big
flat.
flat earth hugs, Jimbo.
Yeah,
Think
cheers,
flat.
Jimbo.
Okay, y'all be good. Have a good
You
Thank you
night.
too.
so much. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye, Jimbo. Oh, wow, that was really nice. Jimbo's a really nice person. And yeah, there's just you and me, Astral.
Yeah, what happened to Artes?
I don't know. Do you think that he was really tired and he just sort of went at the end? Because
It's 1:15 for
artist
him as well now. So who knows?
artist was up really late last night. We had a very intense hangout Friday with Thrive that went on for hours, but a very intense hangout last night. Wasn't quite so long, but we stayed up late talking. And then I know that Artist was on Puncho Pete's doing his music today. So he's been busy today. He has, Artist.
Yeah, he's probably gone to sleep now. He
Yeah.
should too.
Anyways, it's a real shame because there's still quite a lot of people in the chat room, but we're going to end this hangout in a minute. And thank you, Astral.
You're welcome. Always a pleasure.
Big flat earth hugs for you.
And you too, Karen. Thank
Of
you.
course, a big flat earth hug for the chat room as well, and those that stayed watching this. I thoroughly enjoyed that. Jimbo is a really nice, calm person. That's what we need.
Yeah, we learn from him.
Yeah. And he's all, yeah, I learned some stuff from him today, and he's reiterating, and he's another person talking about this. I like now he's told us that light is local. I mean, we've all had these like theories and things, but yeah, that's good. But anyway, we're going to end this hangout tomorrow. And yeah, thank you very much for watching, everybody. So it's goodbye from us.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.